3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
From the place show yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome in to our final regular season football Friday of the year. My, oh my. I can't believe how quickly the NFL season has flown by. We're here today across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter X at Zach Gelb. That is ZACHGELB. A few things. Usually on the final regular season football Friday of the year, you would think there would be a lot of segments today about the NFL. This is not, on paper, a really interesting NFL weekend. Like, yeah, the Ravens and the Steelers, you still got to see who's going to win the NFC North. We all anticipate it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens. You still have one more spot up for grabs in the AFC. You still have one more spot up for grabs in the NFC in terms of who will actually make the playoffs or not necessarily in terms of seeding, as I believe most of us anticipate that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to win the NFC South over the Atlanta Falcons. But really, for most of the NFL season, you hear a term on Sundays. And it's whenever you tune into, not that you hear it during the day, but when you tune into Sunday Night Football on NBC, they play you that song, "We've been waiting all day for Sunday night." Well, really on Sunday, you will be waiting all day for Sunday night, because that is the enormous football game in the NFL world of the weekend. With the number one seed up for grabs, the winner gets it. They win the NFC North. The loser falls all the way down to the 5th seed when you look at the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. Outside of that game, Detroit and Minnesota, I know there's other things up for grabs this weekend. There's nothing that I'm going to really be excited about this weekend in the NFL outside of my football team, just hoping and rooting and praying that they end up just tank, and they lose to the Buffalo Bills so they could secure the number one overall pick and then take advantage like teams named the Giants or the Raiders or the Titans or the Browns who are looking for their next franchise quarterback to trade some picks and potentially move up to the number one overall spot. But I'm not going to sit here and try to contrive energy. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, like some of these hosts that I hear on, on this network or other networks, it's another big weekend of football every week. Oh, yeah, football. Awesome. I'm sorry. In the NFL, outside of the Lions and the Vikings, there's nothing really to have palpable buzz about heading into this weekend. So we'll do a lot of college football today. And let me first off say, because I couldn't say this to Samta the other day because his football team lost in college, but let me say congratulations to Stuart Kovac's Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They finally won a big game. In my lifetime, they have finally won a big game. This is a monumental moment for the new, and I mean the new Notre Dame. And I like Marcus Freeman, but at times it was getting tough to defend Marcus Freeman because of the loss up against Marshall, because of the loss up against Northern Illinois. And it's one thing, right, when you lose to a team like Marshall and you have one bad loss early on in your tenure. But then when you follow it up a few years later back at home and you lose to Northern Illinois after you had a huge win up against Texas A&M, I even said at the time, hey, I'm not going to expect Notre Dame to get back to the college football playoff, but they still have a chance to get to the college football playoff if that's their only loss of the season, because this format is designed as long as Notre Dame only has one or maybe even two losses each and every year, it's designed for them to get into the playoffs, not for them to not get into the playoffs. And a few things about this Notre Dame run. Number one, it's impossible to not feel great for Marcus Freeman. Likable dude, good leader. That team could have fallen. That team could have broke. That team could have just absolutely faded away after that loss to Northern Illinois. They haven't lost a game since. And quite frankly, they have not only not lost a game since, they pretty much have blown everybody out that they have had to play for the rest of the season. But when you're winning these games and it's like, all right, your best win is what? Army or Navy or USC. It's, are we taking the bait again with Notre Dame? And I said this heading into the playoffs, and I have never praised Notre Dame leading up to a big game. I reached out to a former weekend overnight caller, Cody in California, who used to call me on the weekend overnights, would always try to hype up Notre Dame. He'd be like, yo, Zach, I'm chilling like a villain, after he would come back from wherever he was and he was making like nachos, and he would always call me and tell me what he was making after probably puffing a few things and doing a little late night snacking and munching. He would always call me and tell me about Notre Dame. And for years, I would sit there and tell him, you're taking the bait. Notre Dame, they'll win all these games, but they're not going to win the big games. So right before the playoff, I reached out to him, and we haven't talked in a little bit, but we go back and forth just here or there on social media. And I said, I actually think Notre Dame is different this year. I'm taking the bait for the first time, not in forever, ever, with Notre Dame. And I told him, I think they are going to the national championship game this year. I had them winning their first round matchup up against Indiana, but they do that and you could say, oh yeah, but it's Indiana. And then they had this big test up against Georgia. And I know some people now will say, oh, Georgia, they had a backup quarterback. don't care. Because even if Carson Beck played and he was healthy, why should I think Carson Beck, who's been underachieving all year long, was going to beat that Notre Dame defense? Xavier Watts is a stud. Offensively, Notre Dame didn't even play a great brand of offense. Jeremiah Love, in and out of the lineup, he's their preeminent offensive player. Riley Leonard was fine, but what did they finished with like 90 yards passing or something like that, Notre Dame? And they won the game. Riley Leonard was 15 of 24, 90 yards passing, and a touchdown. And if you would have told me that Notre Dame would only have 154 rushing yards and no rushing touchdowns, and Riley Leonard before the game would be 15 of 24 for 90 passing yards and one passing touchdown, I would say, same old Notre Dame. But this is the different Notre Dame. They locked up Georgia. They held them to only 10 points. The defense was the tone setter. And then how about the special teams play? We saw last week to open up the second half up against Indiana. They did that trick play to Jordan Faison on the return. This week, after you get a fumble, a score to end the half, you open up the second half with the kick return. So that was 17 points in a 54-second swing for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, which was just absolutely sensational when you look back at the entire way that it played out towards the end of the first half, leading into the start of the second half with the field goal and then the 2 touchdowns. And right there, I don't know how you felt about this, Stu, but at 20-3, the game's not over. But I'm sitting there saying, they're going to do this. Ball game. It's over. That was my thought. Now, there's times before I thought a game was over and then it ends up not being over. But when they're up to a 20-3 start, and I told you yesterday, you get to like 24 points, you're going to win this game. They only got to get another field goal or a touchdown, and then the game was really over. But when it was 20-3, you may not have said it, Stu, because you don't want to touch the money. You don't want to be the jinx. I know this football team has tortured you. But if you're being honest with me now, after the fact, after you already won, you definitely thought that the game was over at 20-3 after the 98-yard kickoff return.
Yeah, after the kick return, I'm standing on the subway platform watching it, and I had a good feeling. I was like, okay, this is going to be very hard for them to mess this up. I would be shocked.
And I would say the only time where maybe you got some PTSD was the 4th and 1 at midfield when they didn't get it.
Right.
And then you maybe thought to yourself, oh, it's only a 10-point game. Here's the demise. Here's the start of the downfall. But it didn't happen. And my favorite part of that game, and I'm not anti-SEC. We'll talk about the SEC in a bit. I'm not anti-Georgia. I'm not anti-Kirby Smart. But there is an arrogance to Kirby Smart. And to see Marcus Freeman make Kirby Smart just lose his bleeping mind when he's running the whole team on the field, then off the field, and then Georgia, not South Harmon Institute of Technology. Georgia jumps off. Notre Dame hikes the ball. Everyone in America knows they're not hiking the ball in that spot. They're just trying to get you to jump. And the fact that Georgia jumped in that spot to give Notre Dame the first down, and Kirby is irate about it, that did bring a smile to my face. That was fun to see. So congratulations to the new Notre Dame. And another part of this storyline is also, why did Brian Kelly leave Notre Dame? Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, and I can't fault him for the time because he thinks he maxed out everything at Notre Dame, and he looked at LSU and he said, they're in the SEC. I've done everything I can with my 113-40 record at Notre Dame. I went to a BCS national championship, got blown out, went to the college football playoff when it was a 4-team format twice, lost both of those games to Clemson and Alabama. I did everything I can. Before Brian Kelly got to Notre Dame was in a rough spot. Brian Kelly did a very good job in bringing Notre Dame back to respectability. But they couldn't win a big game. They could win games. They couldn't win the games up against the superior programs. Like, they were very, very good, but they weren't elite. And Brian Kelly looked at LSU, and he said, Les Miles has won a national championship there. Ed Orgeron has won a national championship there. And, oh, yeah, by the way, Nick Saban won a national championship there. 3 coaches since 2000 have won a national championship at LSU. So let me go there because I don't think I could win a national championship at Notre Dame. And when he did that, I think we all understood it. It'd be disingenuous today if I got on the air and was like, ha, 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 Brian Kelly. But with that being said, ha, 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 Brian Kelly, enjoy LSU and your Tiger family. All right? Because Marcus Freeman, after losing to Marshall and Northern Illinois in his tenure, I didn't have this on my bingo card, that he would not only have one college football playoff victory, but 2 college football playoff victories. And he is 2 wins away from winning a national championship. So I would be lying to you if I didn't think about Brian Kelly yesterday and how the decision in the moment, I thought it was the right decision. But with what Marcus Freeman has done in the last few months, it has aged horribly for Brian Kelly. When Brian Kelly in a 12-team playoff, not a 4-team playoff, not in a BCS format when only 2 teams would go, a 12-team playoff, Brian Kelly couldn't even get an invite. Couldn't even be in the conversation. You got SEC honks saying, oh, Alabama got screwed. Oh, Ole Miss got screwed. Oh, South Carolina got screwed. LSU couldn't even get into the screwed conversation because they didn't do enough this year. And they also had a Heisman Trophy winner last year, and they couldn't find a way to be a team that could be a force to be reckoned with because their defense was god-awful. So those are some things that I thought about yesterday. But, man, for Notre Dame fans, I don't know if you're going to win the national championship. I don't. You're going to need better quarterback play. You're going to need more out of the offense. You're going to need Jeremiah Love to be healthy-ish and to go off. But with that defense and also what you've seen from the special teams, and let's be real, this is a year where our Final Four teams are Ohio State, who looks like the best team in the country right now, but a month ago, everyone was saying they were cooked after losing to Michigan. You have a Texas team where all year long everyone's been trying to bench Quinn Ewers to see Arch Manning. And then you got a Penn State team where, unlike what Marcus Freeman did yesterday, James Franklin still doesn't have that moment. And I know James Franklin won a Big Ten championship before, and Notre Dame doesn't play in a conference, but James Franklin, who's beat Ohio State once, he needs a big boy victory. And trust me, you know me. I've had SMU players on this show. I have talked Boise State until I'm blue in the face, but if I'm calling a spade, doesn't mean I can't support those schools. But Penn State beating SMU and Boise State is not like Notre Dame beating Georgia yesterday. So this is just one of those moments. This is just one of those moments on the college football schedule with what we've seen in the playoffs so far where it's impossible, and I mean impossible, unless you're a fan of Georgia, to not feel good for Notre Dame and to not feel good for Marcus Freeman. But they are one of 4 teams remaining. And you look at the 4 teams remaining, it's fun. It is. You look at these brands. If I tell you Ohio State wins it all, it's the Ryan Day story. If I tell you Texas wins it all, it's the Steve Sarkisian redemption story. And finally then putting some respect on Quinn Ewers' name. If Notre Dame wins it all, it's an unbelievable comeback. Kind of reminds you of Virginia. I know where Virginia, with Tony Bennett, where they lost as a 16 seed and the next year won a national championship. That would be Virginia in one season when you practically had Marcus Freeman lose to Northern Illinois, and then you come on back and you find a way to win 2 more games and win a national championship. And then, hey, if Penn State can win the Natty, you got James Franklin, who I'll give James Franklin credit. He's done a really good job. Penn State was in a really bad spot when he took it over. Bill O'Brien doesn't get enough credit for the sanctions that and everything that happened there and that he had to fight through that was not his fault. And he's brought him to a point where kind of similarly that we thought Notre Dame was at, where it's like, all right, you win a bunch of games, but can you win the big game? So whoever wins these next 2 games, and they get 2 more victories, whichever coach it is, there's on a lot on the line there. But I got to say congratulations to Notre Dame for what they were able to do. And man, if we could get one radio guest on in the country today, one, I think I'd want to talk to Brian Kelly today. I really would love to talk to Brian Kelly just to get his thoughts on this Notre Dame run and how far away he thinks his LSU Tiger family is. All righty, we'll take a time out. This is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network talking college football. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. When we come on back, so we got like musical chairs going on here today. I'm doing this segment. I got Samter running out of the room like his hair's on fire. Stu's running out of the room as if Notre Dame just lost the game, which they didn't. And then Hot Take Hickey comes walking in. And Hot Take Hickey's all happy because Penn State is 2 wins away from winning the national championship game. So to take you a little bit in behind the scenes here, Stu works on this show, and he's also going to work on Rich Eisen's show. That starts on January 6th. He runs the board here to wherever Rich does his show out on the West Coast. So Stu has a meeting today for the Rich Eisen show during our show. So for the next 30 minutes, we will have Hot Take Hickey here, which is perfect because there's one person in the world that hates the SEC, more than anybody. There's one person that I think of, and it is Ryan Hot Take Hickey. And I'm sure that he'll be able to take his bow when we come on back in 5 minutes. And I got to ask a question. Out of all the disappointment in the SEC now, who's the most disappointing team this season from the SEC? Greg Sankey, you may not want to listen to the next segment. It's the Zach Gelb Show right here on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
So, two of my friends, I always like to joke around with them that there is just one topic where there is real estate just in their head. That this team or this conference just owns real estate in their head. One is my buddy Michael, who is a huge fan of the New York Islanders. And I always joke with him that the Rangers just own real estate in his head. The other is my pal Hot Take Hickey, who I will say the SEC is just absolutely in your head. You always have moments where there is no doubt about it, you will tweet so much about the SEC. So let me ask you this, Hickey, because, right, you have been leading the charge now for like nearly a decade about how the SEC is overrated. And most of the years, you have proven to be really, really wrong on it. But if this is the year that you're going to take a bow, it's time to take a bow. So what do you want to say about the SEC?
That they're overrated and the Big Ten is equal to the SEC. There's no SEC dominance here. Big Ten football is legit, and they're proving it.
Okay, I actually think that's a level-headed take. I think the SEC and the Big Ten, thanks to Michigan, right? You should say thank you to Michigan, where Michigan helped close the gap. You know, they helped retire Nick Saban, get him out of the SEC, which you've been very ungrateful for what the Michigan Wolverines have been able to do. And you've also seen Ohio State have some runs. You know, we'll see if Penn State can now go on their run, if Oregon down the road could eventually win a national championship. But what we've been able to see recently is that the SEC was still the premier conference, but the last 2 years, really, the Big Ten has started to close the gap. Or even you could say 3 years ago, when you got two teams in a 4-team playoff, when it was Ohio State and also Michigan, because we only would have ever thought in a 4-team playoff, two SEC teams would go. So the last 3 to 4 years, the gap has been closed. Now I would say the SEC and the Big Ten heading into next season are on an equal playing field. Now, if you're one of those fans, and no disrespect to the Big 12 or the ACC, right, you could have a moment up against the SEC and the Big Ten, but it's a different level. And hey, an NIL, transfer portal era, parity is a thing. You could get hot, you could go on a run, but there is a separation in college football, and it's clear the two big dogs are the Big Ten and the SEC, where now they're even. And also, here's the other thing, Hickey. If Texas wins this year, I'm going to ask you a question, and you may think I'm an idiot for asking this. If Texas wins the national championship this year, is that good for the SEC in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so, which means they would beat, Ohio State, which right now I think a lot of people would say is the best team in the country.
Fair.
And then either Penn State or Notre Dame. Yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't it be?
I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm talking about the other SEC schools that peacocked around for all those years that would say, oh, Texas and Oklahoma are going to get a dose of reality. Well, Oklahoma did. I don't know how much longer Venables is going to be there, even though he just signed a contract extension, but PU, they finished below 500 after the bowl game. They're 6-7. But you look at Texas, the big bad SEC. If Texas walks in year one, get to the conference championship game, I know they lose, but then they win the national championship game. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it does take away a little bit from, schools like Texas and Oklahoma, they're going to have a horrible time and a rough time transitioning into the standard that is the SEC. It doesn't make the competition of the SEC, which I'm an SEC guy. I love the SEC. I'm not someone that hates the SEC, but it doesn't look good for all those teams that have been in the SEC for all those years if Texas could just walk in and so easily run their way to a national championship.
I mean, Texas is a blue blood. Like, it's not like it's, Indiana walking into the SEC and winning the national title, beating everybody else. Texas has one of the most historic, football programs. And if it was Rose versus Oklahoma, too, like, it's still, these are two power programs. You're not bringing Mizzou in, like the year that they brought in and actually went to SEC title game year number one. But
I'm just saying there's a history there like you're acknowledging. Just saying. Just saying. Come on, I'm giving you the argument to just kick the SEC fan while you're down. You do this all the time when it's not even valid, and you're not even doing it today. What's going to happen?
The SEC fans go, SEC, we still, reign supreme. Look at our conference, another championship, which that's the reason why I hate them. They're just such a loser mentality of they almost like take other teams' success as their own success. Pathetic.
Now, I will say this. What's happening in these bowl games, whether it's Alabama losing to Michigan or it's Ole Miss last night beating Duke, congratulations, I don't care. Like, I don't look at the results in the non-college football playoff games and say, oh, that's the argument why the other conference is better than your conference. It's when you play in the college football playoff games. But this has not been a good year for the SEC in a year of college football where we've been begging for a great team to show up. Like, even Oregon, we said they're the most consistent team, but there are teams that are more talented up until last weekend. They're more talented than the Ducks of Oregon, and the Ducks got into the playoff. They had the bye. They won the Big Ten, and then the committee didn't want to take away from all those loser schools that lost in the conference championship games like Penn State and Texas, so they didn't want to penalize them for getting that step further, and it set up what was a tougher road for actually Oregon because Ohio State beat Tennessee, and then you just had to see like who could be the best team in the country, Ohio State, go up against Oregon. But anyway, when you just get into the SEC, I'm going to say, if you tell me 5 teams this year in the SEC that have been the most disappointing, who do you think those 5 would be up until now if you had to get inside my brain? Who do you think those 5 teams are?
Oh, I'm crawling inside your brain. So I think easily for sure Alabama's one of the 5.
Correct.
I will say Ole Miss, one of the 5.
Correct.
In your brain, I think you would also categorize LSU as a disappointment.
Correct, Amundo.
All right.
You got 2 more. One's obvious.
One is obvious. Okay.
One is obvious. The other, I don't think you'll be able to get the other.
Obvious, then I'm going to go with the low-hanging fruit of Georgia based on how this season ended and really how it kind of...
Now, to be fair, they did win an SEC championship. They're not high on my list, but they had a chance to kind of start to say, we're the new Alabama this year, and now they haven't won a national championship in the last 2 years, so they have taken a hit a little bit, even though this was not their most talented team. So it's not on the same level as some of the other disappointment, but I said 5, so they're one of the 5. And the final one, could you get it?
See, I have one in my head that I would categorize based on their schedule, but I'm not sure if you would put... I'll just go for it because I don't really know who else I could put in there. I will say Mizzou.
Not Missouri. Now, I did think about them, but I didn't love Missouri like everyone else did going into this year. It's Auburn. And here's why. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I had any expectation for the Auburn Tigers heading into this season, because I didn't. But they were so quick. Those fans were so quick to run Gus Malzahn out of town when they brought in Brian Harsin and they followed up with Hugh Freeze. All right? Disaster. And the other one is looking like it's going to be a disaster. And he can recruit. Can you win games? All right? That's what I want to know. Can you win games in the year of 2024, soon, now 2025 in college football? We're going to have to see. But I remember a debate that we got into a few years ago when you were working with me every day. And we were talking about Deion Sanders. And I said I wanted to see Coach Prime go to the SEC when he was at Jackson State. And I said a school like Auburn, they should go out and they should bring in Deion Sanders. I would have much rather have had Deion Sanders the last 4 or 5 years, and I know he's only been at Colorado for 2 years, than Brian Harsin and Hugh Freeze, but that was just me. But for Auburn, they were good, but they felt like they reached a certain limit with Gus Malzahn, And they're like, oh, he beat Alabama a little bit, but not enough. And now it's like, oh, my goodness gracious. Auburn, I don't want to say they're irrelevant, but we haven't talked about Auburn, unless if it's in a negative way, in quite a long time. Like, when was the last time we had a positive take about Auburn? Maybe when they hired Hugh Freeze? I was about, like, some people like that hire, but outside of that, there hasn't been many positive moments with Auburn. Now, you limit it down to 5. In your opinion, Hickey, who is the most disappointing team in the SEC this year? Because I will even say it's not Auburn. Georgia won the SEC, so it's not them. LSU, you got to make a 12-team playoff, and it's not looking good for Brian Kelly now that Notre Dame's 2 wins away from a national championship, and he has doubled your playoff victory total, Marcus Freeman, than you had in your entire existence at Notre Dame. But it's not LSU. I didn't think heading into this year that they were going to make the playoffs. It's between Alabama and Ole Miss is the conversation. I have my answer, but let me hear your answer first on who the most disappointing team is.
I would go with Alabama. Just, you got to make the 12-team playoff. I know they lost some players in the transfer portal. You still have so much talent. And 2, when you talked about in the first month, you beat Georgia at home. That was the biggest test. And you're undefeated, and you miss out on the playoff because you lose to Tennessee on the road. Tough game, okay, fine. You lose to Vandy, and then you lose to Oklahoma and get worked. By far, at least for me, the biggest disappointment in the SEC.
So I don't think there's a wrong answer here when you say who's the most disappointing team between Alabama and Ole Miss. They're both disappointing. And the tiebreakers here are tough because it's like, all right, which team basically sucked more is what you're going to say. So I go back to before the start of the season. I said the standard for Lane Kiffin should be making the college football playoff this year. I said for Kalen DeBoer, he should make the college football playoff or else it's going to be viewed as a disappointment in year 1. If it was a 14 playoff, I think you get a little bit of a grace period, but now it's a different standard with 12. I understand what you're saying in terms of the disappointment. They beat Georgia, who at the time we all thought was the best team easily. Not even close, the best team in the country, and they worked them in the first half before it became a game in the second half. And then you had the big touchdown pass by Milroe down the right sideline to Ryan Williams. But still, there was an unknown about Alabama before the season started. And I love Kalen DeBoer coming up from Washington, but it was the first year without Nick Saban. And you look at Ole Miss, they had a lot of guys returning that roster was invested to and how much money that they spent. And all I said for them was they had to make the playoff. And even though Alabama, you could say, hey, they lost to Vanderbilt, they lost to Oklahoma. You know, I'm not going to crush them for the Tennessee loss, even though Jalen Milroe's awareness in that game was absolutely horrible. But you look back at the Ole Miss losses. I know Florida got better as the year did go on. You know, you lose to LSU and you lose to Kentucky. What's the great win for Ole Miss this year was also they beat Georgia. So give them credit for beating Georgia. But I thought Alabama looked better up against Georgia than Ole Miss did, even though that Ole Miss defense was phenomenal in that game. But that's the thing for me. I look at Ole Miss. If I would have told you this year, Hickey, that Ole Miss wouldn't have got to the college football playoff because of their offense, you probably wouldn't have believed that. Their defense was good enough to go to the college football playoff. Like, you look at the games that they lost. They lost to Florida 24-17. You lose to LSU 29-26. That was in overtime, too. You lose to Kentucky 20-17. All right, if you want to blame one of those games on the defense, fine, but it can't be the Florida game and it can't be the Kentucky game. You know, they missed the field goal at the Kentucky game, and the Florida game, Jackson darted the ball back numerous times and couldn't get the job done. So I just look from where we were before the season. Yes, once Alabama beat Georgia, if you would have told me they weren't making the playoff in a 12-team format, I would have said you're smoking something. All right? But Ole Miss before the start of the season, with the continuity that they had, I thought if they didn't make the playoffs, it was going to kind of be like USC from a year ago, where it was obvious how bad the defense was when Alex Grinch was their defensive coordinator. I would have never thought in a million years that Ole Miss wouldn't have made the playoffs because their offense wasn't good enough and their defense was. So that's why I give the slight edge in the award that you don't want to win on who's the most disappointing team in the SEC this year to Ole Miss. But I obviously clearly understand why people would say Alabama. I'm not a 1A guy, but this is truly a 1A because I do believe, Hickey, those two teams are just so close when it comes to the disappointment this year.
No, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, both I thought were like locks back in August to make it. That would, like I say, you wouldn't even entertain the thought of them not being in. And SEC, all this hype, not a lot of substance. Makes you wonder.
Oh,
makes you wonder.
You know what's going to happen now. Texas will win the national championship.
Well, can't be Penn State. That's fine with me.
Well, they could be Penn State.
I said if it can't be Penn State as the national champions, obviously that's my first hope, then Texas would be my second pick.
I'm very surprised it's not Notre Dame. You're a Notre Dame fan.
I can't root for the team that beats mine. If it's a Notre Dame Ohio State national championship, that'd be very tough for me.
Now, I like to bring an unbiased voice here, just so people don't think I'm making anything up. Ack, can you do me a favor? And
No.
I know that you have just had back surgery, so I'll make this easy for
Thank
you. Who is that person in that photo that I'm showing you right now?
That is the guy signing the letter of intent. It looks like Ryan Hickey.
And what is that emblem on his jacket?
Oh, absolutely. He likes two teams. That is the interlocking ND of Notre Dame, unless he wants to go North Dakota, which I don't think he does.
No, that's definitely Notre Dame. So, Hickey, you can't lose in the semifinal.
The Hickey Bowl.
Notre Dame, your team that you grew up rooting for, and your alma mater in Penn State. I have to ask you this question because I really don't know the answer to it. Who are you rooting for, by the way?
I am rooting for...
See, the key is you got to go to a Division III school like I did. So I never run into that. So I can root for the Irish.
Yeah, that's fine. I want to know who Hickey's rooting for.
I'm rooting, of course, for my alma mater, Penn State.
So you're going to be watching that game screaming, "We are Notre Dame!"
No.
That's what's going to be happening.
No, never.
You're not going to be upset. Either way, you're not going to be upset.
I will be very upset if they lose. Very upset. They should win. I feel actually too
Well, you'll
confident.
be upset, but you'll also be happy. You'll be upset that Penn State lost, but happy that your Notre Dame Fighting Irish won.
Oh.
This is going to be a rough week for you, buddy.
I think it'll be a rougher week if they lose. I'm excited for this matchup.
Well,
I'm
let me remind
looking
people.
forward to it.
We do have a bet, correct, Amundo?
Yeah. What was it again? Hold on, because I'm actually getting close here.
What is it again? Now I could just fib my way, but I'm an honest man, so I'll tell you. You said before the college football playoff started that if you thought Penn State was going to the national championship.
That's right.
And I responded to you, if Penn State goes to the national championship game, I will do one of our segments with you that we do each and every Wednesday in a Penn State Nittany Lion costume. But the exact wording of this bet was whoever Penn State loses to if they don't get to the national championship game, you have to dress up as their school mascot. So now, knowing it's Notre Dame, and I know you have a lot of Notre Dame gear, you have to dress up as a leprechaun if Notre Dame takes down Penn State. So we win. I win either way, if you think about it.
Well, why do you win? You have to dress up as a Penn State Lion, a team that you have said multiple times on this airways that you hate.
But I'll be happy for my dear friend, the athletic director of Penn State, and Pat Kraft. So whatever. I have to dress up as a Nittany Lion. Who cares? It's more hurtful for you if Penn State loses in the semifinal than dress up as a leprechaun who was your school that you loved rooting for as a kid. It'd be like if your ex, I'm sure you dated someone in high school, right?
I did.
And did you guys have a nasty breakup?
No.
Yeah, I can't imagine you having a nasty breakup. Let's just say you had a nasty breakup.
Okay.
And then, years later, you see them sitting at the table over to you, and they're dating, somebody else, and then you got to just sit there with them. That's what it's going to be if you have to wear a Notre Dame Fighting Irish leprechaun. You have to dress up as a leprechaun. That's what it would be if you end up losing there.
Notre Dame didn't break up with me, though. I broke up with them. I got the upper hand.
I still think that you cheat on them. I think you cheat on your lover right now, Penn State, and you're still a Notre Dame fan. This is not an old photo. This is a photo from
2 weeks ago.
I was going to say 2 years ago, but it may be 2 weeks ago.
I have a lot of Notre Dame. I mean, I'm not going to throw it out. I'm not denying my Notre Dame fandom, but the love, the passion, the excitement or disappointment with the win or loss is completely gone.
I'll give you a one. We'll go instead of mascots. We're going to go cinematic costume. If Notre Dame wins, then you wear the number 45 for Rudy. Was that the way it would? No, it would
what?
be.
We already made the bet.
I'm sorry. If Notre Dame were to win,
jersey better than the leprechaun. I'm with Hack here.
No, we already made the bet.
You go Rudy.
Rudiger.
But if Penn State wins, the loser has to wear the number 22 for John Cappelletti.
Nice.
No, we already made the bet.
Well, I don't know.
We already made the bet.
How about he dresses up like the Heisman Trophy, face paint and all, in honor of John Cappelletti? Now that's true cinematic.
If Penn State wins, I dress up as a Nittany Lion. If Notre
Where did
Dame
you get
wins,
that costume from?
you get it on Amazon. They sell everything on Amazon.
I'm going to look that up.
All righty, we're going to take a timeout here. Let's just get to the update here, Zach.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Tua Tagovailoa has dealt with a lot, and now his injured hip has likely ended his season, with the Dolphins expecting to start Tyler Huntley in their season finale against the Jets, who conducted another head coaching interview, their second in as many days. This time it's former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. The Bills have signed Mike White to a one-year deal through next year, so Josh Allen will see only a few snaps on Sunday. Derek Carr will miss the Saints finale. The Celtics had a strong start to the season after championship number 18, but December was a much different story. The defending champs rang in the new year with a win last night and will face the Rockets in Houston tonight. Jason Tatum said it was a refreshing change after going 8-6 last month following a 16-3 start.
We had a tough December. Looking forward to January is a great opportunity to get back to our identity, and no better way than start off the road trip down two of our starters and still figure out a way to win the game.
The Celtics are 4.5 games behind the Cavaliers for the Eastern Conference lead as Cleveland goes for its 9th straight win in Dallas and their 30th of the year. And the league's two hottest teams meet in Oklahoma City, with the West-leading Thunder, who've won 13 in a row, host the Knicks, who bring a 9-game winning streak into this one. I'm Rich Ackerman.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is, play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, let's start things off with Marcus Freeman and Riley Leonard on the game-sealing offsides play that sent Kirby Smart into a tizzy.
That situation that happened in the fourth quarter was something we practiced, and I think the performance is a reflection of that. We had a lot of confidence in the ability to be able to do that. We had a plan, and that's the aggressiveness in terms of our preparation that I want our program to have, and that's how I want this group to attack our preparation and attack performance when we have the opportunity.
Real quick, he's being humble. That was completely his play, and we were going to do it a different way, like 2 days ago, and then he flipped it, and we executed it that way, and it worked.
It's our
so
play.
He's being humble,
Our
like
play.
all throughout the year. All right, yeah, you know this guy, but I'll say it for him. Great call, great execution.
I love that from Riley Leonard. The coach is lying to you. He's basically just being a good leader and a good team guy. All his doing. Don't give credit to anybody else but Marcus Freeman. Let's go to Kirby Smart. Was having a bye a disadvantage in the college football playoff?
I look at the what Vegas says, and it went kind of what Vegas said. You know what I mean? Like, at least in those two games. I guess ours was I don't know, it was close, but two of those teams were better than the other teams, to be honest with you. And that is what it is. That's more about the seeding process and where it is. But I'm not here to complain about anything. Given the opportunity, Notre Dame lost with probably their best defensive player. So I don't know how that's an advantage.
Yeah, so the whole bye conversation, I think, is just a silly one. I'll get into more of this later. But Boise State, and I know Arizona State had a good showing, finally in the fourth quarter when they came alive. But both of those schools were expected to lose. So just saying, Boise State and Arizona State lost and the bye's a disadvantage, that doesn't make sense. Georgia's playing without their starting quarterback, which I don't even know if it was a disadvantage. And Notre Dame, it was just their time. And I don't think it mattered who Ohio State was playing. Because Ohio State, I think, would have beat any team in the country with the way that they played the other day up against Oregon. I would imagine if you said, maybe there's one school that the bye was a disadvantage for, it would be Oregon, but I think that's just lame. I really think that's lame if people are using that as an excuse. Let's go to Charles Barkley. This is on Inside the NBA on TNT. He just goes off on J.J. Redick, who is criticizing people that are critical of the NBA product.
He said something about we're the reason people ain't watching this crappy product we got. That's JJ. Yeah, us, like we out there jacking up 100 threes a night. JJ, I don't know Jason Monroe. I don't know who that is, but JJ, you come for the king, you better not miss. Because I can get you, brother, because I got your Lakers games. You can't hide them flaws they got. You just a dead man walking. They got rid of Frank Vogel, who did a good job. They got rid of Darvin Ham, who did a good job. But You came out there thinking you were going to change things with that same ugly girl you went on the date with.
64-51 was your halftime score. As we get back to the highlights, and Rudy Gobert.
He came in there thinking, I can make this thing work. Hell, you can.
77-71.
Put some makeup on that pig.
Man, the Lakers are pig.
The Lakers stink, man.
Oh, man, okay.
The Inside the NBA crew is honest. You know, they're not always right, but they're honest. And yes, the regular season product in the NBA blows. So tell JJ Redick to go shove it. Because that dude only wants you to say things that are positive. Never wants you to say anything that's negative when sometimes you need to say what is negative because it's the truth. Alrighty, let me hear Jimmy Butler. He wants out of being a part of the Heat culture with the Miami Heat.
I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball. And wherever that may be, we'll find out here pretty soon. But I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court. But I want to be back to somewhat dominant. I want to hoop. And I want to help this team win. Right now, I'm not doing that.
Can you get your joy back here on the court?
Probably not.
Here would have been my follow-up. Jimmy, if they paid you this offseason, would you have your joy? Because that's what this is all about. Pat Riley didn't want to break the bank anymore for Jimmy Butler and basically just bow down and genuflect to Jimmy Butler. And I can't say that's the wrong decision. And also, I understand why Jimmy Butler, if that's what it is, why he doesn't want to be there anymore. But the whole, I don't have my joy anymore on the court, it's a bunch of nonsense. You'd have been perfectly fine with staying in Miami if they just gave you the big fat contract that you wanted. So it's just one of those contract disputes. It reminds me a lot like James Harden was at the end in Houston. Now, he didn't want to stay there anymore, either way. And it was time for him to move on. And this is a little bit different. But when you have that press conference and you take it to the next level, that's Jimmy Butler taking it to the next level. But this idea that he wouldn't be happy in Miami if they just paid him and it would still be the same tone, please. Give me a break. No one's buying that. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. That was a news brief. We'll take a time out. When we do return, let's evaluate the future of the 4 college football playoff losers that we saw the last few days. Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State, and then also Oregon. We'll get into those losers next when the Zach Gelb Show does continue after these short messages.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, we continue. This is Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on the Infinity Sports Network. So looking back at the quarterfinals of the college football playoff, yesterday it did conclude with Georgia losing to Notre Dame. Starting up on Tuesday night, New Year's Eve, you had Boise State losing to Penn State. And then on New Year's Day, which was Wednesday, you got to see Arizona State in a thriller in the fourth quarter and then overtime just fall to Texas. And then we saw right after that, Oregon just completely get dismantled by the Ohio State Buckeyes. And now you look at those four losers, right? We talked about for the first hour Notre Dame winning. Congratulations to them. You know, you'll look back at also Penn State and Texas and Ohio State. We spent the majority of yesterday's program talking about them. Let's spend a few minutes talking about the four losers from the quarterfinals. So I'll start with Georgia. And I look at Georgia's future. It's still bright, right? They're still going to be one of, if not the most feared team in college football. But I think we were premature on Georgia, where after they won back-to-back national championships, and last year when it looked like they were on their way to going back-to-back-to-back before they lost to Alabama in the SEC title game. And who knows what would have happened if it was a 12-team playoff then. Maybe Georgia would have got into the college football playoff, and maybe they would have won a third straight national championship. But Georgia was on this trajectory where many people already claimed them as the new Alabama, where what Nick Saban did at Alabama is what Kirby Smart was going to do at Georgia. Now, the last 2 years, even as great as they were in the regular season, Georgia did not do a good enough job in the SEC championship game last year. And then this year, you looked at Georgia, and early on you realized that they had flaws. They were not going to be as dominant as what people thought they were going to be heading into the season. But with that being said, just a few weeks ago when they take care of Texas in the SEC championship game, we're sitting there and saying through all of that turmoil and through all those moments where Georgia stumbled this year, and in one of the college football playoff rankings, they didn't even make the bracket. They still won the SEC. They still had a bye. Now, yesterday's loss, I saw it coming. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm stunned by it. It was a fine Georgia season. But for Georgia, it's not just winning the SEC. Like, that's not the standard anymore. That's one of the goals you want to meet throughout the year. But it's a program now where they're judged every year, fair or not, and you can't win it every year. Do you win the championship or don't you? So, with that being said, Georgia, they failed to meet their goal this year. I'm not going to sit here and lambaste Georgia. But when you look at the Bulldogs, the last 2 years, they've kind of displayed that they're not at the Alabama level yet. Now, Kirby Smart's still going to go into next year as the preeminent coach in the country. Georgia's still going to be, I'm sure, in the top 3 next year when you enter college football, rankings. Georgia's still going to be one of the more talented teams. But now it's getting back to what Georgia was 2-3 years ago. You get the point. And seeing if you go win another national championship to get back on that trajectory of where you were going and where you were trying to be. And that was trying to be the next Alabama. So that's the Georgia part of it. Boise State, I'm fascinated to see how we're going to be talking about Boise State next year. Because Boise State is still in the running, right, to make the college football playoff every year. They are. Now, they're not in a Power 4 conference. They're not in the Big 12. They're not in the ACC. They're not in the big bad SEC or the big bad Big 10. So even if they win their conference, and I know they're moving to the Big 12 for football, it's not a guarantee that they get into the college football playoff. But they are in position where if they win their conference, which they've done, right, with Spencer Danielson, I know he's only been there for a year and a half, but the last 2 years he took over for Andy Avalos, Boise State is in position to be a consistent player in a 12-team college football playoff format where they could just get there. Winning a game, different story, but at least getting there, because the format the way that it is the 5 highest ranked conference champions, they get a spot. So whether it's the new look Pac-12 or whether it's the American Athletic Conference, whatever those preeminent bigger, smaller conferences are, if that's the right way to word it, they're in that running. But they're losing a ton this year, and they're losing their identity of their program this year, which was Ashton Genty. Now, you have Maddox Madsen coming back, their quarterback. They're going to have to put more on his plate because this year it was run with Genty. Maddox Madsen managed the game, and Maddox Madsen did get better as the season did go on. We all thought Malachi Nelson, quite frankly, was going to be the starter when the season did start, and you had Maddox Jeter Madsen win that job. But a guy like Genty and him leaving that program, you know there's going to be a drop-off, but how much of a drop-off is it going to be? Now, I do think Spencer Danielson is a heck of a coach. Boise State has resources, but they don't have these same resources as some of the, big boy players, obviously, in the country, going from Mountain West, even with the jump up to the Pac-12. But Danielson, for one of these smaller schools, is a coach that is a great camaraderie guy, a great leader, a great energy guy, really rooted in his faith, too. And that's the genuine Spencer Danielson, who he is. That's not some act. And I think Spencer Danielson, sure, not every kid's going to be Ashton Genty. And at a school like Boise State, you're going to develop some kids, and then when they get to their junior and senior year, they're going to go take the big pile of cash, and your school, they can put up some money. They can put up enough money to get the kid to stay. But if it's just you're going to the highest bidder, Boise State's not always going to be in a position to keep those kids. Genty was different. Genty stayed when he could have gone to a lot of premier programs in the country this past offseason. So I do think having the right coach goes a long way. And you haven't heard, and maybe this will change, but I haven't heard a rumor yet of Danielson leaving. Doesn't mean he won't, right? He's still a young coach. You go put together another 2 years of making the playoff, or you make the playoff one more time, you can get a lot of big boy schools calling, but this is a job it has history for Spencer Danielson since he was on the staff before he became the head coach. So I think because of the coach, if you tell me maybe it's not next year, but 2 or 3 years from now, Boise State is back in a college football playoff, I wouldn't be shocked by it. Arizona State, I'm fascinated by. Because Cam Scatterboo was their identity this year. Just like with Boise State, how Ashton Genty was their identity. But when you look at Boise State's quarterback, Maddox Matson, he's got to take that next step. But Sam Leavitt, they only lost 2 games with him this year as their quarterback. And one was in the college football playoff. The other was a regular season game. He was hurt for their other loss in the regular season. But I look at Leavitt. That's a dude that could be the face of your program. And I don't know what his ceiling will be at the next level, but I do think that there is a next level conversation down the road for Sam Leavitt if you continue to check off these boxes in college. He's still got a long ways to go, but we had him on this show about a month ago. The confidence is there, right? He has the alpha persona that you need kind of in your face when you are a quarterback. And sometimes, right, people are more vocal than others. But when Kenny Dillingham is your coach, and if you tell me there's a quarterback that you want to match the personality and identity of Kenny Dillingham, I do think it's someone like a Sam Leavitt, the way that he presents himself. So Sam Leavitt is their guy next year, and he's going to become the face of the program. And I don't want to say that this is something that gets overlooked, because if you follow the Sun Devils, you know this. If you're a P1 college football fan, you know this. But it got talked about a little bit in the quarterfinals game, and they showed him on the sidelines. But Jordan Tyson got hurt at the end of the year. Jordan Tyson, the Colorado transfer, who's been with Arizona State now, he had 75 receptions for 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns this year. That Jordan Tyson was not in the Big 12 championship game. That Jordan Tyson was also not in the college football playoff game. So now you get 2 really good guys on your offensive side of the ball coming back, even though you're losing Scatterboo, and Jordan Tyson and Sam Leavitt, and you got a coach in Kenny Dillingham, where you're we talk about Spencer Danielson. Who knows if he's going to leave Boise State for a next job? I know that this is home for Kenny Dillingham, right? It's home for him. But, geez, if that dude doesn't have rock star potential from a young up-and-coming coach, then I don't know what rock star potential is. Like, do I think Kenny Dillingham, even though he played at Arizona State and he's been the head coach for the last 2 years, is Kenny Dillingham's last stop Arizona State? I would be surprised if it is. That dude has premier, and I mean premier, head coaching material at a premier program. Like, that dude is just getting started. They were picked dead last year, this year in the Big 12, and I don't think this season for Kenny Dillingham will be his only moment. And you look at the Big 12, that's a conference. It's a good conference, right? But there's no signature team in the Big 12. You know, there's no Lincoln Riley team with their run anymore in the Big 12, with Oklahoma now going to the SEC, Texas now being out of the Big 12. And in an era of the transfer portal and also name, image, and likeness, I think Arizona State could be a destination. And there's reasons why after every win this year when he's had the national spotlight, what did Kenny Dillingham do? He sat in front of the podium with great energy, and he talked about the collective. And he talked about donating to the name, image, and likeness, right, collectives for Arizona State. So I'm not saying he's going to bolt right away, but when some of these bigger jobs open up, and who knows what bigger jobs are going to open up, right? Because coaches get on a hot seat right now. Look at Billy Napier, for example. You win a few games down the stretch, and people are going to bring you back because they know if you leave, all your kids, all the recruits that you brought in are heading right to the transfer portal. So Dillingham, he'll stay a little bit at Arizona State, but he's still so young. He's 34. 34 years old. Stu, you're 34, right?
33, but
30,
yeah,
so
close enough.
Could you imagine coaching college football at 34?
No.
Or even right now at 33?
No.
So, think about that, and I'm only 30, right? It's such a young stage in your life. There's so much adulthood still to go through. Even if Kenny Dillingham stays there till he's 43, you go coach, I'm just throwing out a big school or something. Kirby Smart's in no danger of leaving, so I'll just throw Georgia out there. He go coach Georgia then for another 15, 20 years, if not more than that. So I don't think that this is the end for Arizona State either. Now, Oregon's a fascinating one because you will have Colorado fans, right, that will be attacking Oregon because they're still all caught up in their feelings from 2 years ago when you had Dan Lanning talking to his team before a game saying, oh, they're playing for clicks, hit with your helmet, all that stuff. Just stupid stuff that goes on in between fan bases that now the Colorado fan, after you got smacked in the bowl game up against BYU, is chirping Oregon, who just won a Big Ten championship. And yes, they got smacked by Ohio State. But if Oregon got smacked by Ohio State, what would have happened to Colorado then going up against Ohio State? And I have nothing against Colorado. I love Shedeur. I love Travis Hunter. Love Coach Prime. The kid McNeil on the defensive line. He was absolutely awesome this year. I loved his development. Warren Sapp joining that coaching staff was pretty damn cool. So I just find it funny. And that's part of the I don't want to say rivalries, but the fan poking back and forth in college football. And yeah, Oregon has to take it for, 72 hours, whatever it may be, as that was a unacceptable, ugly loss. It was. But it was a season heading into the playoff where it was championship or bust for Oregon. But their first year still in the Big Ten, they won the Big Ten championship. They beat Ohio State in the regular season. So it's not as if you look back at Oregon and say, that's it. That was their window, their shot. No. Dan Lanning has a great personality. Dan Lanning is becoming a big coach. And Dan Lanning is at a big program in Oregon. But just like when Chip Kelly was there, and Chip Kelly did a lot of great things at Oregon, can you win a national championship? And that's the conversation. Dan Lanning's going to be in the mix. Dan Lanning's not going anywhere. The Ducks aren't going anywhere, but that's going to be the multi-million-dollar question. Like when we talk about Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. Can Josh Allen win a Super Bowl? Can Lamar Jackson win a Super Bowl? Right? They're just certain teams. Look at James Franklin at Penn State. Can you win the big game? Right? Marcus Freeman up until yesterday. Can you win the big game? Now that's going to be the thing for Dan Lanning, where he got some of that big game praise this year because of the fact that you beat Penn State in the Big Ten championship. You beat Ohio State in the regular season, and that monkey was taken a little bit off your back, but now it's placed right back on because you were the number one seed, undefeated, and you didn't just lose to Ohio State. You got absolutely embarrassed. So I look back at the four losers from the quarterfinals. Georgia displayed that they're not Alabama yet, but they're not going anywhere anytime soon. I'm fascinated to see what Boise State's going to do in the post-Ashton Genty era, but I like Spencer Danielson as a coach. I'm a big believer in Kenny Dillingham, and I like that you have Levitt and Tyson coming on back for Arizona State. And then for Oregon, it's can you win the big, big games in the college football playoff? All righty, Zach Gelb here with you on the Infinity Sports Network. We will take a break. When we come on back, Stu's got some questions for me. I'll give him some answers. We'll do a little onside, offside next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, it's time to ask the pros. You, the listener, gets asked us a question brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF Sports Center at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show. We might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Stu, what do we got cooking today on Onside Offside?
All right, Zach. The Jets are looking for both a new GM and head coach, and reports indicate that Rex Ryan, Ron Rivera, Mike Vrabel are top coaching candidates, while Thomas Dimitroff, Louis Riddick, and John Robinson are GM options. Yesterday, the team conducted interviews with both Vrabel and Riddick. So Onsides, Offsides, a duo of Vrabel and Riddick would be the Jets' best-case scenario.
So I think so, considering the circumstances. Like, I don't think this Jets job is all that attractive, if I'm being fair. because you still have the uncertainty of Aaron Rodgers. You got some good players on the roster, but I don't think this is a job where it's going to get the top of the top candidates. Now, Vrabel did interview there today, and I did put out a tweet at the time when this job did open up, the coach first and then the GM, that if all things went well for the Jets and you have to settle for some names, I said Louis Riddick and Brian Flores are the first two names I threw out there. I never thought Vrabel would consider. So if you tell me that you could get off that standard, Vrabel over Flores, yeah. And then I already threw out Riddick, as when you get to some of the tiebreakers on these GMs, it's a bunch of nonsense. So I think that would bring some respectability to the Jets. So a duo of Vrabel and Riddick, that'd be a pretty damn good scenario. So I would go on sides.
All right. Black Monday is one of the worst days of the NFL calendar, and this year expects to be no different. The Jets, Saints, and Bears have already fired their coaches, and we could see coaches fired by the Giants, Bengals, Browns, Dolphins, your Patriots, my Raiders, the Jaguars, the Cowboys, and maybe the Eagles later on. Onsides, offsides, you believe at least 4 other coaches will be fired after Week 18.
Okay, so at least 4 other coaches. So Jets, Saints, and Bears are already out with their coaches. Eberflus, you also had Dennis Allen, and you had Robert Saleh. Jeez. At least 4 other coaches. Whew. It's a good question. I think the Raiders' job will open up. I think the Jaguars' job will open up. And outside of that, I think that's it. I don't think the Giants are going to open up anymore. I've been going back and forth with that one. For most of the season, I said no with the Giants. And then I started to say recently, yes. I don't believe that Giant job's going to open up anymore. So I think the jobs that will be open are the Bears, already open. I think the Raiders will open. I think the Jaguars will open. The Jets are already open. And the Saints are already open. So you asked me that at least 4 other coaches will be fired after Week 18. Now, could you get a team get in the playoffs and then potentially get fired? Yes. So I'm saying that 2 more will open from the 3 that we already have. So even if I miss one, it's still going to be offside on that one. So I don't think 4 other coaches are going to be fired after Week 18.
Offside.
We have 6 of the 7 NFC playoff teams set, with the only remaining uncertainty being who wins the NFC South. The Bucs would clinch the division title with a win over the Saints, while the Falcons would seal the division with a playoff spot win over the Panthers and the Bucs loss. So they'd have to get a win over the Panthers, and the Bucs would have to lose. Onsides, offsides, you would rather see the Bucs in the playoffs than the Falcons.
Absolutely. I'd much rather watch Baker Mayfield play football right now. No offense to Michael Penix Jr. I like Michael Penix Jr. and Bijan Robinson. But the Falcons, incompetent organizations, should not get rewarded for making incompetent decisions. And Raheem Morris was deserving of another opportunity to be a head coach. But the fact that they elected to pick Raheem Morris over Bill Belichick when Bill wanted that job a year ago is an absolute disgrace. And Art LeBlanc, I said this before, he was a coward. He wanted to hire Bill Belichick. He could say what he wants. He wanted to hire Bill Belichick, and he was talked out of it because people in the organization were afraid of the hoodie, the big bad Bill Belichick. He thought he was going to huff and puff and blow the Atlanta Falcons house down. That's what people thought was going to happen. And Raheem Morris did a terrible job up against the Commanders last week. So, yes, I'd rather see the Bucs in the playoffs than the Atlanta Falcons on sides.
Penn State played the first college football playoff quarterfinal game on Tuesday night, while their upcoming semifinal opponent Notre Dame didn't play until 2 days later because of the terrorist attack in New Orleans. The two sides now face off on Thursday, while the other semifinal with Ohio State and Texas kicks off on Friday. Now, the SEC requested to flip the game so that Notre Dame could play on Friday instead. But
Did they really?
Yeah, but the committee declined the request. So on to offsides, Notre Dame is at a major disadvantage having just 6 days rest rather than the 8 that Penn State would have.
A major disadvantage. So this is what we're doing now. So Notre Dame's not getting enough rest. But then we're going to sit here and say a team like Oregon and Georgia had too much rest. That's really what we're doing now. You can't have it one way and then want it, like, it's either too much rest Or not, like, stop. It's 6 days. Notre Dame, I'll tell you this. If they lose the game, Stu, it's not going to be. Thank you. It's not going to be because, they got screwed over by a day, which it's even weird to say screwed over by a day. There was a terrorist attack. All right? So I'm sorry. I don't want to hear anyone bitching about, Notre Dame should have this game moved back. But also, you said this was the SEC who wanted to flip this?
That's a report, yeah. The SEC was requesting it beforehand because of Georgia's involvement.
Because they thought Georgia was going to win.
Yeah.
The arrogance of the SEC. I would love to know what Commissioner Sankey is thinking today. They have Texas, but come on. You wanted to push that back because you're trying to get Georgia an advantage before they actually, won the game? That's a little karma. But I have no problem with that. So Notre Dame is at a major disadvantage having just 6 days rest rather than the 8 Penn State will get? Offside.
Offside. While the focus has been on the college football playoff, we got another bowl game last night as Ole Miss crushed Duke 52-20 in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. Senior quarterback Jackson Dart threw for over 400 yards.
I love the names of these bowl games.
They're so good, yeah.
The Tax Slayer Gator Bowl.
Amazing. Yeah, Jackson Dart, though, 400 yards and 4 touchdowns for the 14th-ranked Rebels. Onsides, offsides, Lane Kiffin can win a national title at Ole Miss.
Offside. How about you make the playoff first? You didn't even just make the playoff this year in a 12-team format when everyone was stubbing their toe, falling over, and still being able to get back up. So he could win a national title? I can't sit here and say onsides right now. I can't do that until you actually do so. It's like amazing, some people, too. It's just that they expect you to say everyone could win a national championship. I got people in the chat, you're going to eat crow about what you said about James Franklin? James Franklin still got to win a big game. All right? He still has to win a big game. And let me tell you something. I like this with fans that listen to our show. They think when they mention something that I may have said that was wrong, that it gets under my skin. I don't give a crap. Do you know how many takes I have to give throughout the year? Do you know how many takes I have to give throughout the day? Breaking news. Not all of them are going to be right. All right? I'm a talk show host that could say, I'm Zach Gelb, and I will get some things wrong. And guess what? When I get things wrong, I'll say, hey, I got them wrong. But don't celebrate. Don't dance on one of my takes until it's wrong. Don't say, you're going to be wrong. You're wrong. You want to comment on it. I'm not going to backpedal until I'm actually wrong. But congratulations to James Franklin. You beat Boise State and you beat SMU. And now we'll see if you beat Notre Dame, and I'll be the first one to say it. If James Franklin beats Notre Dame, he has graduated from making Penn State Participation State University. He will take them to the next step. And I will not criticize James Franklin in terms of the overall quality of his season, even if he loses in the national championship game. I could criticize him for an individual decision in that game if he does something stupid. But yes, if Penn State gets to the national championship game, I view their season as a success. But your question was Lane Kiffin could win a national championship at Ole Miss. Offside, make the playoff first.
Offside. So reports out of Miami say that Jimmy Butler told the team that he wants to be traded, and the All-Star was brutally honest when talking to the media.
I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball. And wherever that may be, we'll find out here pretty soon. But I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here off the court, but I want to be back to somewhat dominant. I want to hoop, and I want to help this team win. Right now, I'm not doing that.
Can you get your joy back here on the court?
Probably not.
So a few weeks back, Shams reported that the Suns, Warriors, Rockets, and Mavs were the most likely trade destinations for Butler. Onside, offsides, Butler would not make any of these 4 teams into a legitimate title contender.
So that's some of the biggest load of crap that I've ever heard from Jimmy Butler. I can't have happiness in Miami. Well, if they would have paid you, you'd be pretty damn happy in Miami. I'm only happy off the court, but I'm not happy on the court because I don't have my money. Like, come on. He even knew that was bullcrap, but he was saying it because he knows that if you're a professional athlete in Miami, it's really tough to be unhappy with all the good-looking women, with all the weather, with all the great food that Miami has to offer. But Butler would not make any of these 4 teams into a legit championship contender, and the 4 teams were the Suns, the Warriors, the Rockets, and the Mavs. Well, who would the question on the Suns is who they trading away? Because if you have Booker, Durant, and Butler, and you get rid of Beal, yeah, sure. The Warriors, that would be giving another big piece for Steph. But once again, who you trading away? And the Mavs were just in the finals a year ago. But who are you trading away? So that's a big question. But if you tell me you still keep your main core guys, like your first and second best players there, and Butler's the third piece, I think he can make one or two of those teams a legit title contender. Not saying they will win it all, but a title contender. So I'll go on sides.
All right, and last one here, LeBron and Bronny. They made NBA history as the first father and son duo to play together. Now LeBron's youngest son, Bryce, committed to Arizona, and many believe that Bryce could be a one-and-done as well and force his way to the Lakers, I guess, like Bronny did. So onside, offsides, LeBron will play a game with both Bronny and Bryce.
So now his son committed to Arizona. That's for next year,
next basketball season. So LeBron would have to play 2 more years in theory.
And remember a few years, I think it was last year, not a few years ago. Bryce said, I'm not, like he was on some feed, Instagram Live, or now I sound like Bill Belichick. He was on Snapface, whatever. I think he was on Instagram Live. Or he's streaming Twitch, something like that. And he's like, that's never going to happen. My dad's old, pretty much. Can I see LeBron playing, that means 2 more seasons after this one. And then also I think this son is better than the other son, at least from what I read. I don't think so. That LeBron's going to play a game with both Bronny and Bryce. There's just too much there for that to happen, and I don't think LeBron's playing 2 more seasons, so I'm going to go offside on that one.
Offside.
Alrighty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will take a break. We will come on back, and we will get into this layoff with the college football playoff that everyone was freaking out about and now using it as an excuse because the 4 teams that had buys, they all lost. I'll tell you why that's a big load of crap when we come on back. Just like how Jimmy Butler's saying he's unhappy in Miami on the basketball court. It's nothing to do on the basketball court. It's because you haven't got paid off the court and you wanted a new contract. So we'll talk about a bunch of crap when we return right here on the Infinity Sports Network. Here's now the
Speaking of which,
he will not feed you a bunch of crap. Sometimes he is full of crap, aren't we all? Yes. The great Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, the Jets have had a crappy season. They got a head start on the coaching carousel. Interviewing Ron Rivera yesterday. Today, they met with former Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. They'll face the Dolphins in Sunday's season finale. Tua Tagovailoa unlikely to play due to a hip injury. Miami is going forward as if Tyler Huntley starts. The Bills' Josh Allen expected to see only limited action at most, as Mike White was signed to the active roster today, getting a 1-year deal. Also, Derek Carr's season for the Saints is over as he'll miss the season finale as well. The 2 hottest teams in the NBA get together tonight in Oklahoma City, where the Thunder host the Knicks, who have won 9 in a row. OKC notched its 13th straight win last night after finishing with the top seed in the West last year. The Thunder want more this year. They currently lead the Western Conference, and head coach Mark Daigneault said last season just one step in the process.
You get better by taking on the challenge in front of you, throwing your best punch at it, learning from it, applying the lessons moving forward, and doing that over the course of 82 games, and that's how you improve through the season. That's certainly our goal.
The Cavaliers have the most wins with 29. They're also going for number 30 tonight in Dallas and their 9th straight win. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
The great Jody McDonald, Jody Mack, he'll be joining us today at 5:20 p.m. Eastern Time. And we save the best for last. Because when I think of gambling at this network, I think of Jody McDonald. He will be joining us at 5:20 p.m. Eastern Time today, 2:20 p.m. Pacific, for our final regular season installment of NFL picks. And we will get Jody Mack's 3 against the spread picks for this week. Week 18 is very tough because there's a lot of teams that aren't playing their starters, and there's a lot of games that do not matter. But our guest pickers this year have been absolutely phenomenal. When I pull up the document here that gives me the exact record for these guest pickers, they are 30-18. You know, if I would have told you before the year that I was 28-20 in NFL picks against the spread, I would say I don't care who the guest pickers are. I'm 8 games above 500 heading into the final week of the season. I'm winning. Well, our guest pickers are 30-18. It's pretty damn good. So we'll bring on Jody Mack either to continue that and to clinch it, or he will mess it up. And you know what? People can't say that, oh, I'm trying to intentionally put someone there to help out my record. Because Jody Mack is the industry standard when it comes to gambling. No one has more experience than him, and no one has probably placed more bets. You know, maybe one other person, Pharrell. Shake it up, Pharrell on the bench, it's Scotty Pharrell. Than Jody Mack. When Jody Mack used to come into the studio, you would know all of his bets. And it's not because he would say them on the air necessarily. He would have all the tickets, the old school tickets. Now you just go into this thing called the cell phone and you place your bets and you have all your betting slips right in the palm of your hand. But you would know Jody Mack, who sometimes didn't clean up after himself, if we're being honest. And he would leave all of his tickets that did not win right on the table next to me. And sometimes I would look through them and be like, oh, maybe he left a winning ticket. And that would be like my little pot of gold. And then I could run with it. But that never happened. He never left any of the winning tickets. It was always losing ticket after losing ticket after losing tickets. And if he kept his winning tickets, I hope that he actually had some. Because there'd be like 20 tickets that'd be sitting to my left that would just be loser, 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 loser. And most of the times it had nothing to do with the NFL. And most of the times it was horse racing. All the time with Jody Mack. Some of my favorite radio in the history of this network is before one of the big Triple Crown race, one of the Triple Crown races, one of the legs of the Triple Crown. Jody would bring on like Eddie Olczyk. And usually when you bring in Eddie Olczyk, what are you talking? Hockey. Jody Mack is talking 25 minutes because Eddie's a huge horse racing guy and does a bunch of stuff for NBC. And it was always just horse racing, horse racing, horse racing with the great Eddie Olczyk. So Jody Mack's going to be stopping by in about 30 minutes from now right here on the Zach Gelb Show. Okay, let's do this. I want to hear from Marcus Freeman. You heard from Kirby Smart earlier. He would not use the bye as a disadvantage for the college football playoff and a reason why his team ended up losing. And he said, hey, we had an injury, obviously the quarterback position, but I'm not using that as an excuse because Notre Dame was without one of their best defensive players, their big defensive lineman that got hurt right towards the end of their victory up against Indiana. So let's hear from the other way. This is Marcus Freeman, who did not have a bye because Notre Dame doesn't have a conference. And that's another thing, too. Everyone's saying Notre Dame needs to join a conference. Notre Dame needs to join a conference. And look, Notre Dame hasn't joined the conference. They have a little affiliation with the ACC, but they have not been a full-time member of a conference. And they're now in a playoff format of 12 teams where if they just do their job and only lose 1 or 2 games a year, they're in the college football playoff. Yes, they're going to have to play in the first round because only the bye spots, which could be changing anyway after this year. And then it's really, why would you then join a conference if you're Notre Dame? If you could get a bye and not be a conference champion, then a school like Notre Dame, you lose 1 game a year, there's a good chance, obviously you're getting in, but there's a good chance that you could have a bye if they end up altering that rule that you have to be a conference champion to get a bye. But everyone keeps on saying Notre Dame needs to join a conference. They don't. Marcus Freeman, humiliating loss week 2, was able to survive it, and now they're 2 wins away. They're in the Final Four. They are 2 wins away from winning a national championship. But since we're on the topic of conversation, was it an advantage to play in the first round when your seeds are 5, 6, 7, 8 that are in the semifinal and the quarterfinals, all the bye teams did go down? This is what Marcus Freeman had to say when he was asked if playing the first weekend of the college football playoff was actually an advantage.
Whatever circumstance we're throwing at us, we're going to take advantage of it and prepare and maximize the opportunity ahead of us. And so that's what they did. The first game had nothing to do with this game. It was the preparation that they put into this week in this game and the performance that they put on. But I don't believe in my heart the first game had anything to do with this one. It was about the preparation they did after the first game.
And then let's also hear from Kirby Smart. We'll replay this for you. Was the bye a disadvantage in the college football playoff?
I look at the what Vegas says, and it went kind of what Vegas said. You know what I mean? Like, at least in those two games, I guess ours was I don't know what it was close, but two of those teams were better than the other teams, to be honest with you. And that is what it is. That's more about the seeding process and where it is. But I'm not here to complain about anything. Given the opportunity, Notre Dame lost probably their best defensive player. So I don't know how that's an advantage.
It would have been so weak if Kirby Smart would have got to that podium last night and would have said, yeah, the bye and the layoff was a disadvantage. Because if he did, I would just say, well, then would you prefer not to win the SEC in future years? And there's no way he would have said, yeah, we wouldn't have wanted to win the SEC if we're looking back at it. So even though Kirby Smart got outcoached yesterday by Marcus Freeman, Kirby Smart is still viewed as the preeminent coach in college football, with Nick Saban no longer in it, with Jim Harbaugh back to the NFL. Georgia's going to be back, right? I don't think this is the last national championship, what happened 2 years ago when he went back-to-back titles. I don't think that's the last national championship that Kirby Smart has won. I just think, and I said this when you found out what the format was going to be, it never made any sense to me. And I know why they did it. In theory, it was, okay, the 4 highest-ranked conference champions, well, they're definitely going to be SEC, Big 12, Big 10, and the ACC, right? Those would be the 4 ranked highest conference champions. That's what they thought. They never factored Boise State was going to be able to get into a bye spot, but that's what happened. And it didn't make sense to me that you could say, oh, the 4 highest-ranked conference champions, they get seeded 1, 2, 3, 4, but then you could win a conference, and like this year, right, you saw Clemson win the ACC, but they're going to be 12th. And in theory, it was going to be, if a school like Boise State, right, got in for the 5th spot, they would always be 12. So that never made any sense to me, and I had a gripe with that. I would say, just if you win your conference, right, the 5 highest-ranked conference champions, they should just be guaranteed a spot into the playoff. Or, I'll take it a step further. They should be guaranteed a home game, right? They have to be a top 8 seed. That I'm fine with. I'm okay with that. But guaranteeing them a bye, I doesn't think needs to have happen. And I like the way that Kirby Smart said it, because it would have, I'm all about consistency, right? We could all be hypocritical from time to time, but the SEC at times can be hypocritical. And what was the SEC's biggest argument? Why a school like Alabama or South Carolina or Ole Miss should have got in? Right? What did Nick Saban say a few years ago when his team was left out of the 14 college football playoff? Well, if we played one of those schools, we would have been the favorite. Right? That's what they always say in the SEC. So at least Kirby Smart said there, hey, I get it. Boise State and Arizona State won. I know Arizona State covered, but they were double-digit underdogs for a reason. So yes, they were the 3 and the 4 seed. So when you just see the 3 and the 4 seed, you're like, the 3 and the 4 seed, we're programmed that way. They're going to win. But if you picked Arizona State or if you picked Boise State, you knew it was a David versus Goliath matchup, and you were picking the underdog in that one. So for 2 of those matchups, and Arizona State, I know they got off to a bad start, but they almost won the game at the end. I don't think if Arizona State didn't have the bye, that means they would have won the game. And for Boise State up against Penn State, if Boise State didn't have the bye, and let's say they played it 1 round earlier up against Penn State, Boise State would have lost. And that comes from someone that picked both Arizona State and Boise State to win. I thought one of those schools were going to find a way to get to a victory, so I just said, you know what, bleep it, I'll end up picking both. But did Georgia lose the game because of a layoff? No. Georgia lost the game because Notre Dame was ready to win a big game. Georgia's been vulnerable all year. Georgia didn't get good production from their quarterback all throughout the year. Beck gets hurt. Gunnar Stockton, people are praising him left and right. And he looked poised early. But as the game did go on, it's kind of crazy. We went through an entire football season where Georgia wasn't able to run the football. That's another thing, too. I could sit here and praise Notre Dame's defense, so I'm blue in the face, and I have, right? I've been talking about this Notre Dame defense for a while now, and credit to Al Golden. But Georgia has not been able to run the ball all damn year. So even if they, let's say, had a week and a half less to prepare for the game, right? They had to play and then play the next game. Notre Dame, if they were the ones that got the bye, they were beating Georgia yesterday regardless. If you want to say maybe one team got impacted by the bye, and his coach was before when he joined us was talking about the long layoff, And it was more so in pertaining to the calendar in college football when dealing with the transfer portal and the school calendar, how you could still move everything up. He's like, hey, we've been off for 20-something days. So did Oregon get impacted by the layoff? Potentially. But still, do I look at Oregon and say the reason they lost to Ohio State was because of the layoff? Absolutely not. I don't think it really mattered who Ohio State was going up against in that second round. They could have played that game 2 weeks ago, right? They could have played that game 2 weeks ago. If Ohio State played like that, they were beating anyone that they put in front of them. I don't care where you play the game, how many days you had to wait. Ohio State has that ceiling, and the last 2 weeks they finally met that ceiling, and they got the Michigan game out of that system. You know, it was important, I will say, for Ohio State to play right away, because imagine they had to sit there longer and longer and longer and longer and longer and just marinate in that Michigan victory. But Ohio State playing right away in the first round, that was a team that didn't deserve to get rewarded, and they took out their frustration on Tennessee, and they're able to then find the next skier up against Oregon. But I don't look back at the top 4 seeds and say, oh, Oregon, Georgia, Arizona State, and Boise State, the reason why they didn't win is because they had to wait 20, 30-something days from one game to the next. I will not do that, and I don't think that's valid. All righty, we'll take a timeout. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We got new coaching predictions to make for you. I have destinations that I think are already open and that will open from now until Black Monday, and I'll give you who the replacements are going to be when we come on back in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Hour number 3 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. Just a week ago, about a week ago, I had 6 jobs opening up in the NFL. Here was the initial conversation that we had and the initial predictions. And I said it was the first draft. Not the final draft, but the first draft. I had the Bears hiring Ben Johnson. I'm changing that prediction. I had the Raiders hiring Mike Vrabel. I had the Jaguars hiring Pete Carroll. Changing that one. I had the Jets hiring Joe Brady. Changing that one. I had the Giants hiring Liam Cohen. Changing that one. And I had the Saints hiring Aaron Glenn. Changing that one. So my first draft wasn't my best draft. You know, it'd be like when I used to write a paper in college, the one time I did that. I would write the rough draft. It was absolutely horrible. I'd go back to the computer, and I would write the second draft, and I go, okay, this could get a C. I could get a degree. But now on the radio, I'm not just trying to get a C. I'm trying to get an A. I'm trying to ace this one. So if let's say I'm going to make 5 predictions, if I could get 4 out of those 5 right, I'd be thrilled. If I get 3 out of those 5 right, I'd be happy. Anything short of that, I'm a disgrace, I'm an embarrassment, and you know what? I had a wrong take, so I should get fired, right? Because that's how people operate. You got a take wrong, you should be fired. If that's the case, we'd have no more radio hosts left in this business. We'd have no more TV hosts. And quite frankly, all you listeners would have to fire yourself as well because you all get things wrong as well. But without further ado, Stu Pock, Stu Kovacs, a winner, usually a football loser, like you're an NFL loser with the Raiders. Now you're a football winner because Notre Dame is 2 wins away from a national championship victory. Let me ask you something, by the way. So are you going to make your way down to Miami? I was talking to Hickey earlier. Hickey, by the way, who roots for both Penn State and Notre Dame. Hickey told me he is not going to Miami. He wanted to go, but his group, his cult members in Penn State, they are already saying we'd rather save the money. Use that as motivation. Send it to Marcus Freeman. They want to save the money for the national championship game in Atlanta, Georgia, which, by the way, I just got confirmation during the break. Someone asked me earlier, am I going? I said, I think I'm going. I just got confirmation during the break. I'm going either way. We're going to do the show there that Monday from the national championship game. I will fly back early Tuesday morning, and we'll do the show back here in the New York City studios, but I will be at the national championship game. But Stu, I have to ask you this before I get to some predictions. Are you going to try to go to the semifinal game to see Notre Dame in Miami up against those Penn State, PU, Nittany Lions?
I will look into it this weekend. I don't know. It depends on pricing and all of those kind of logistics. I also don't want to take another day off. I'd prefer not to take another day off after all the days off I just took. But,
wow.
You know.
Someone not want to take a day off around here. How about that?
How about that?
Can I just give you a little advice?
Sure.
Go.
Okay.
All right. I love you, Stu. But if you had to take off a day or two, go. That's a cool experience, even if you end up losing.
It is. So at that point, it would come to prices. So we'll see.
Do you have another guy friend that likes Notre Dame that you want to go with? Or no?
Yes. I don't think they are in the position to go, though.
Okay. So they're not ready
It would just be a solo trip, I believe.
I'm going to give you some relationship advice. Ready? This is what you do. You go home tonight. You stop off before you get home. Valentine's Day a little bit earlier this year.
Okay, yeah.
Get some roses, get some chocolates, right? You walk into your house. You say, Angie, I want to go to the semifinal with you. Let's go. She can't say no, Stu. She just dropped about $8,000 to go see Taylor frickin' Swift. The national championship game, the semifinal, it probably costs you I bet you $300-400 to get into the building, and it's on a Thursday. So you fly down Thursday morning. You could stay the whole weekend in Miami. Even you go back Saturday, you're going to a warm weather place. There's a lot of ways that you could sell this to your girlfriend, even if she doesn't want to go to the game. Let's make this a trip. We'll go to Miami. If you don't want to go to the game, I'll go to the game Thursday night. Breaking news, she's going to want to go to the game. And then you could spend all Friday in Miami. And then if you want, you could fly back Saturday, stay another day Saturday. That's what I would do if I was you.
It appears I can get into the stadium for $250.
That's it?
Yeah, to sit upper deck, which I would be fine with.
$500, 2 tickets. You get I don't want to say a cheap hotel because your girlfriend's going, but you don't need to be staying at the Fontainebleau for crying out loud. You could stay next to the airport, and I bet you airfare is only going to cost you $200, $250, $300 most a ticket. I think it's feasible. You know what, Stu? If you don't want to go with your girlfriend, I may be interested in going. I could be, you know what, you need a guy friend to go, Stu? We do the show Thursday from WQAM. We go to the game, and then we can fly back Friday morning. I would be, you know what? I would be interested. I'm not going to sound desperate here. I'm not going to beg, but I'll let you think about it. If you want to go home, see if Angie would like to go, because quite frankly, I'd much rather go if I was you with the girlfriend rather than me. At least there'd be a good nightcap, even if the game sucks, if I'm just being honest. With me, we're just going out and getting Joe's Stone Crabs, all right? If the game stinks, it could be a little bit better. Who knows? It just depends what you're into. But if you maybe sit there tomorrow at some point and go, man, I wouldn't mind going to the game with Zach. It's something I could be interested in because it would be good show content. And I could sit there and I could root for Notre Dame. And, you know what? Let me change that. Maybe I'll root for Penn State. Not that I actually would, but maybe I could use a connection at Penn State to potentially get us some tickets. Who knows? Potentially. So we could talk about this off the air.
Flights as low as 170, according to Samter.
Ooh, 170.
It's not terrible.
That's not bad.
It's really not terrible.
That's not bad. I'll do some perusing. I'll do some investigation.
I will as well.
I'll get you an answer by Monday. We can figure this out. It's the end of the show at 6. The game starts at 7:30, right?
I would assume it's 7:38. Yeah, it's got to be.
So even if it takes us an hour to get from QAM to the stadium, we go right in, boom, game starts, and we cheer on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This could be a fun trip. I could be easily convinced to go to Miami for about 24 hours. I've been to worse places. And let's be real, the last time we went to Miami wasn't a great trip, if I'm just going to be honest. That's one of those, if you know, you kind of know, and Stu and Samter do not know. Anyway, Give me the music, por favor. Let's get some music going. All righty, I'm going to make some predictions here. So the Giants last week, I said we're going to open up. I think Brian Daboll is back. I do not think the Giants are going to fire Brian Daboll. So that leaves me with jobs that I think are going to open up that already could be open up too. The Bears, the Raiders, the Jaguars, the Jets, and the Saints. Now let me just give a little PSA here first. Robert Kraft, I would fire Gerard Mayo. I'm not usually a one-and-done advocate. Mike Vrabel wanted the job last year. You wanted to give it to Gerard Mayo. He was your coach in waiting. This year has been a disaster. I'm not saying that they had great talent, but with that being said, if Mike Vrabel's still out there and he's interested, or Ben Johnson may want to work with Drake May, I would get rid of Gerard Mayo. I just don't believe the Pats are going to do it. But this was on the Greg Hill Show on WEI in Boston. This shows you how much of an embarrassment the Patriots have become. I'm not irate with the Pats. They won 6 Super Bowls in my life, so it's tough for me to get mad. But this is Jelani Tavad, one of their linebackers. I think he's a leading tackler on the year. On Pats fans booing Gerard Mayo and wanting him fired.
They're not qualified to do what Mayo is doing, or whatever the Pats are doing. The fans. And I appreciate them at times, but sometimes they just gotta know their place and just understand that it's a work in progress. Rome wasn't built in one day.
Yeah, through-in football team. The coach also guaranteed on that radio show before the season that they would definitely win more than 4 games this year, which was the mark last year. So he also was critical of the fan base. Let me just give you a little advice. Shut up. All right? Like, when you're a part of a losing team, I understand why you want to defend yourself. I understand why you want to defend your coach. All you needed to say there was simply this. Things are not going the way that we wanted them to go so far this year. We believe Gerard Mayo is the guy. The fans have every right to boo and every right to voice their opinion. And it's up to us to give them something to cheer about. End of story. Period. Stop. That's all he needed to say. So I would fire Gerard Mayo, but I don't think Robert Kraft's going to do it. So now, that leaves me with the Bears, the Raiders, the Jaguars, the Jets, and the Saints. Let me hear from Cliff Kingsbury. This was the other day. Does the Commanders' offensive coordinator want to be a head coach again?
Yeah, I'm sure at some point. Yeah, at some point.
Do you plan to interview for jobs this year?
I won't comment on that, but yeah, we'll see how everything plays out. But I'm very happy here. Yeah, this has been an awesome place and has really helped me kind of rekindle my love for the sport.
When Cliff Kingsbury was the head football coach, or anywhere he's been a head football coach, he's got off to really good starts, miserable finishes. I do think Cliff Kingsbury's going to get a job this cycle. Because I will predict this. Ben Johnson will not be the next head football coach of the Chicago Bears. Mike Vrabel is not going to be the next head football coach of the Chicago Bears. So if that's the case, where do the Bears go? They go to Cliff Kingsbury, and he gets a job again as a head coach sooner than I thought he would have with what he's done with the Commanders, with Jaden Daniels, and also here's the biggest thing. He was at USC for a year with Caleb Williams. So I'm going to say the Bears hire Cliff Kingsbury. Now, Stu, your Notre Dame Fighting Irish are in a good spot right now, finally giving you some football joy. Your Raiders are not in a good spot. I do believe the Raiders are going to get rid of Antonio Pierce. With that being said, I think it's because they're getting rid of him, which it's based off merit. I know it's only a year of him being the full-time head coach. He did a nice job last year as the interim. But I think Tom Brady's going to be a lot more involved than what people are led on to believe that a minority owner is going to be involved. He's not any minority owner. He's Tom frickin' Brady. And Tom Brady has a very close relationship with Mike Vrabel. Tom Brady, right, has been to the Kentucky Derby before with Mike Vrabel, played with Mike Vrabel, won 3 Super Bowls with Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel was even a threat on offense, even though he was a defensive player when the Pats were winning some of those early championships in the first wave of the dynasty. And a few years ago, when Brady was getting ready to embark on a free agency tour, which eventually landed him in Tampa Bay, Tom Brady was at a Syracuse basketball game with who? Julian Edelman. Who were they FaceTiming? Mike Vrabel. I think Vrabel wants to be the next coach of the Patriots. I don't think the Patriots will fire Gerard Mayo, even though they should. So Vrabel's going to go back to one of his pals, TB12, who's now part of the ownership group for the Las Vegas Raiders. So I have the Bears hiring Cliff Kingsbury and the Raiders hiring Mike Vrabel. Now, here's what I think could be a stunner. Last year, every single person, every Tom, Dick, and Harry told us the Washington Commanders were going to have Ben Johnson as their head coach. And then Ben Johnson said, I'm going back to be the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. He knew he could have drafted with the second overall pick Jaden Daniels. He knew he could have been part of the Washington Commanders. He said thanks, but no thanks. It seems like when Ben Johnson, you tell him to zig, he zags. And it wouldn't shock me if he goes back for another season as the offensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions. But I think the timing is really right to take that job. You returned, you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you're either going to do so this year or you're not, and then I think you'll leave. And I believe the Jacksonville Jaguars, who their last 2 hires haven't been the right hires, but they've been big names. Urban Meyer, big name. Doug Peterson, big name. I think they're going to go take a big swing here, and they're going to reel in the big fish of Ben Johnson, and Ben Johnson will look to save the career of Trevor Lawrence. I have Ben Johnson as the next head football coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So that leaves me with 2. The Jets and the Saints. Joe Brady. Where did we first really know Joe Brady? With the LSU Tigers. Joe Brady also has a background with the Saints. I think the Saints, who are in a total rebuild, are going to look for a young, innovative mind. I'm not saying it's definite that Joe Brady's going to get a job this offseason, but after that disaster in Carolina, he has restored his image in the NFL, has done a really good job the last year and a half, taking over the reins with the Buffalo Bills on the offensive side of the ball. Josh Allen doesn't have a ton of weapons, like James Cook, good running back. Amari Cooper, older wide receiver. Keon Coleman, a rookie. Dalton Kincaid hasn't been as much of a boom as we thought he would be. I think the Saints are going to say, let's go back and let's go bring in Joe Brady and get one of those young, innovative offensive minds for whoever our next quarterback's going to be. And that leaves the Jets standing all there by their lone. Jets interviewed Mike Vrabel today. I already predicted Mike Vrabel to be the next coach of the Raiders. I'm going to say the Jets bring back one of their own. I would love Rex Ryan to be the next head coach. I don't think it's going to be the Rex Ryan, to be clear. I think they're going to bring in the Lions defensive coordinator, former Jet player Aaron Glenn. So those are my predictions. 3 jobs already opened up. I think 2 more jobs will open up. Bears will hire Cliff Kingsbury. Raiders will hire Mike Vrabel. Jaguars will hire Ben Johnson. Jets Aaron Glenn. And the Saints hiring Joe Brady. When we come on back, a man that I hosted some radio shows with for about 3 years, when it was Eye on Football, now Gridiron Game Day. He's a radio legend, a radio icon. You can hear him on WFAN, WIP, and also right here on the Infinity Sports Network. And he's also one of the biggest gambling enthusiasts I know. We saved the best for last. Our guest pickers have been sensational this year. I think they're 30-18 on the season. But I want to bring in one of the best gamblers I know to give NFL picks when we come on back. The great Jody Mack. Jody McDonald will join us when the Zach Gelb Show continues in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
One of the all-time great radio legends, Jody McDonald's going to join us now for a few moments as we will do some NFL picks with him. You can hear Jody right here on the Infinity Sports Network, WFAN, WIP. If you tune in to a radio, 99.9% chance Jody is hosted on that station or will be hosting on that station coming up very shortly, and he's kind enough to join us right now. Jody Mack, my friend, how you been?
Way too complimentary for me, Z Gelb, but good to hop on with you, bud. Hope you're doing well. Hope the new year's been good to you.
Yeah, can't complain. All is well here. Happy New Year to you and your family. After today, I kind of say if you don't say Happy New Year to people, then you really don't care about them. So I'm glad we could get you in right before the clock did strike midnight with it being January 3rd. I'll start you off with this because I always know doing that Sunday show with you for years, we're always big on following the Super Bowl predictions. Before the year started, I had the Ravens getting to the Super Bowl up against the Rams. I had the Rams winning it all. What was your Super Bowl pick before the season?
Yeah, you don't want to hear what my Super Bowl pick was, but you gotta live by your selections. I flew in the face of you can't get back to the Super Bowl after losing. I really thought the 49ers were the best roster in the NFC. I'd picked the Eagles to go to Super Bowl 2 years running. One I got right, one I got wrong. I got off the Eagles, went to the 49ers. Yeah, they'll be at the Super Bowl if they've got tickets. And yeah, I let my heart make my pick rather than my head. I took a shot with Rodgers and the Jets. I said if he stays healthy, then they should be good. If it just all comes together at the right time. They stink. Aaron Rodgers should be done. If he plays next year, he's only going to further embarrass himself, and I think he embarrassed himself this year. So, yeah, 49ers Jets. I've already thrown that ticket away. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I got to ask the tough questions. Jody Mack here with us. So who do you want as your head coach for the Jets, and who do you think the Jets will get?
I got no bloody idea. I had an NFL guest on either on WIP or here on the Infinity Network on Sunday, and they said they thought that the general manager should be hired first, and then the general manager should pick the coach. If Woody Johnson, who I'm not a big fan of, I think he's an awful owner and he keeps that team in the doldrums that's in. If he wants to make a hire right away and make a good one, I'm okay with that. I'm not saying Woody can't touch this unless he's going to get the general manager. If he gets the general manager right and they pick the right guy, fine. But if Woody wants to do something, and here's the thing I think Woody needs to do now, make it easy for the people he's going to hire. Get rid of Rodgers. Cut the cord. Do what you got to do now. Don't make the new coach or the new general manager be the quote-unquote bad guy. I don't think too many Jet fans would think of him as bad guy, but some people would. Do it now, Woody. Take charge of your organization. Send Rodgers packing.
So I agree with you, because even if you bring Rodgers back and if it all goes right, maybe they could be a wild card team. I wouldn't even expect that after what happened this year. But you're bringing him back for 1 year for if everything does go right, you're a wild card team, and that's it. That's why I would say rip the Band-Aid off now, even if you don't draft a quarterback this year. It's kind of crazy, Jody Mack. I don't know what's going to happen with Sam Darnold, and I don't think Sam Darnold will come back. But if they get Sam Darnold back on a 3-year deal, I don't think that'd be a bad move for the Jets where they're currently at.
I know what kind of a year Sam has had. He's a legit MVP candidate. He's not going to get it, but he's a legit candidate. He's going to get some votes. He sees ghosts in New Jersey. No. Let him stay in Minnesota. Let him go somewhere else. He sees ghosts at MetLife these days. No, I'm not going there. I'll be patient, wait to rebuild. I actually think there's a better quarterback draft than most people think, so I think that the Jets will be able to take, at worst, the third best quarterback in the draft, depending on where they end up drafting. They may even get the second best quarterback in the draft. They may get Cam Ward falling down to him. I'm a Quinn Ewers fan. He looked damn good the other day, rallying Texas to win that ball game. So I think the Jets would be best served taking their next quarterback in the draft.
Okay, let me get your thoughts on Brock Purdy. I know you said you picked the Niners to get back to the Super Bowl. They were not able to do that this year because they're not even going to make the playoffs. 1 year left on that Brock Purdy contract. They're going to pay him, I would imagine, a fortune this offseason. Do you think that's going to be the case, that they will say, okay, let's give him the deal, or do you think they're going to say, all right, let's have a real prove-it year for you, Brock Purdy?
Depending on how big is big. I'm a Purdy guy. I'm a Purdy guy. When we did Iron Football together, certainly I told you how good I thought Purdy was. I bet Purdy to be the MVP last year at like 55-1. And I had a shot with 2 weeks to go before he had the bad game against the Ravens. He's had a lesser year than I thought he would. San Francisco's been killed by injuries. Killed. Everybody's got injuries. San Francisco had an inordinate amount. So I'll cut him some slack for that. If he's good in the $40+ million range, then I think they'll get him signed. If he wants to, because everybody gets higher than the next guy. It just keeps going up and up and up. So if he's going to hold out to be the highest paid quarterback and be up at 60 per, no, I think the 49ers will say, all right, you want 60? Come back and put up 35 touchdowns, 112 passer rating, only throw 4 picks. Yeah, then we'll give you the 60. So it all depends on what Purdy's looking for. I hope that he's reasonable. I hope he's in the 40s and the 49ers get it done.
All right, I'll ask you one more question, then we'll get to the NFL picks. The great Jody Mack is here with us, the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You got a lot of Philadelphia roots. It was an early crazy roller coaster ride with Nick Sirianni. He has restored some confidence with the fan base, but then there's some hiccups along the way that you're like, oh, what the heck is going on? I was reading something the other day. I forgot what it was, so apologize. But it's saying, if there's a dark horse candidate to still get fired, it could be Nick Sirianni. I think he's back either way. Do you see any way that Sirianni's not back with the Eagles next year?
It was it was Jeremy Fowler from ESPN who said if the Eagles make an early exit from the playoffs, Sirianni's job could be in jeopardy. Yeah, if they lose 42-7, I think it would have to be god-awful. They'd have to get crushed at home in front of their fans, rioting, cats and dogs, living together. You know what it's going to take to get Sirianni fired. I don't buy it. The Eagles will win their first home game. They'll probably win both of their 2 home games and be in the NFC Championship game. And if that's the case, Sirianni's going nowhere fast.
Did you have any problem with Sirianni sitting down Barkley for this weekend and not letting him go for the Dickerson record?
Problem? No. Would I have done it differently? Yeah, I would have given him a chance. I get it. They played safe. I thought they played a little soft, so that just tells you where I come off. I would have given Barkley a chance. Lane Johnson out, maybe Becton out because he's been injured. The other 3-star offensive linemen, all young. Get in there and help your boy Saquon get his 100 yards. I would have done it if I were the Eagles. They decided to go down the safe route. Is it the worst move that Sirianni made all year? Oh, no. He's made worse. He's made some bad decisions. So this would not add to his call to be fired if that's what you're asking, even though I would have given Barkley a shot.
All righty, let's get to the music. Let's get to the big voice guy. We got to do some NFL picks. Final regular season edition of NFL picks right here on the Zach Gelb Show.
It's time for NFL picks on the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, I am 28-20 against the spread this season. Jody, our guest pickers, and I said I'm saving the best for last, so that's you. It's pretty big shoes to fill this year. Our guest pickers are 30-18. 30-18 against the spread this year.
That's a hell of a percentage. Who anybody go undefeated? How many usually take? 3 apiece?
Yeah, 3 apiece. We've had, let's see, undefeated 3-0 on the guest pickers. Andrew Perloff, Trista Crick. Surprisingly, we're the only people to go undefeated. I've had quite a few 3-0 weeks this year, but I'm not going to brag. I'm just going to tell you what my record is. It's 28-20, and I got to be better.
Except you did tell me you're trailing the guest pickers.
Yes.
You are. Yeah, so you're actually rooting for me to screw this up so you can catch the guest pickers. And we do have one game that we will go head-to-head on, as far as I know. So you want me to go first?
Well, real quickly, I have to ask a question. Because when I was first getting started here on the network, I always knew you were a big gambling guy. But I would always see your losing horse racing tickets because you would leave them in the studio. So have you advanced now to the year of 2025? Are you up to speed on how to bet on the cell phone and everything? Or do you still go to the casino? Do you still go to the book to go get your tickets that way?
Horse racing, I want to be there. I want to be able to see the horse. I want to be able to judge his conformation. No, I do not do wagering via my phone. Sports gambling, that's another thing. But for horses, no. I prefer to be at the track and get an actual ticket in my hand.
Okay, so let's get to it. I'll let you go first. What's your first pick against the spread, Jody?
First game for me is the Packers. They still have something to play for. They can get the 6th seed, which means they could avoid Philadelphia in the first round, and I think that's a pretty big deal. You get either the other 2 divisional winners, it's an easier play than if you have to come into Philadelphia and take on the Eagles. So I think the Packers will not only go for blood, I think they'll go to run the score up. And the Bears are just flat out done. Zach Gelb's already got their new coach picked out for him. Not going to help Zach. They're bad now. They're terrible now. They've quit on the season. Hey, I got it 9.5 earlier in the week. It's up to 10 or 10.5. I'll lay 10. I think the Packers win handily over the Bears.
All righty, so Jody's taking the Packers laying the 10 points. All year long, I've been thoroughly disappointed with the Cincinnati Bengals. Their wins this year. The Panthers, the Giants, the Browns, the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Titans, the Browns again. All those teams stink. Finally got a good quality win last week up against the Broncos. They have won 4 in a row. Usually the talk show host would say, oh, they're getting hot right at the right time. I just think it's too little too late. I still think they're going to play really damn well. I think they're going to win the game. The Ravens are probably going to win the game before then, and then the Ravens will win the division. So I don't know how much the Steelers at that point will have to play for. I like the Bengals laying the 2.5, and we're going to look there when the Bengals don't get in the playoffs and they're sitting there at 9-8 and saying, man, only if they would have won one of those Raven games or only if they would have won one of those other games that they just did a terrible job in earlier in the season. So I like the Bengals to win. I like the Bengals to cover the 2.5 points. That's my first pick. Your second pick, Jody?
Second for me, again, so far we've taken 2 games where the team needs a win. I'll take a third. The Commanders, the Packers and the Commanders. One of them's going to finish 6th, one of them's going to finish 7th. Neither one of them wants any part of 7th. They both want to try and get that 6th spot. The Commanders are a 6-point favorite at Dallas. That's tough to believe. The Washington, believe it and bank on it. The Cowboys are, I think, deader than the Bears. I watched them roll over and die against the Eagles last week. Yeah, I know they won the week before, but CeeDee Lamb is now done for the season. I think the Commanders come in and give an outstanding effort in Dallas. Oh, by the way, Cowboys have been a better road team than home team. So go against the boys in Dallas. I'll lay 6 with the Commanders.
2 months ago, if you would have told me Mike McCarthy was going to be back, I would have said you're crazy. I actually think he's going to be back next year, Jody. Yourself?
Jerry doesn't like firing coaches. For all the crazy stuff that Jerry does, he's actually pretty damn reserved with his coaches. If the right guy is out there, Jerry will go get him. But if it's not, if it's just him picking Mike Vrabel, no, I think you're right. I think McCarthy could stay.
And he could sniff around a little bit with the contract expiring, so you got to get that deal done anyway. So you could kind of look around still, even though you have a coach there because of the way that the contract is run on out. All righty, my next pick. So you said we're going to be on board with one game, so let me pick the game that I don't think we're going to be going up against one another, and that's the Lions and the Vikings. I'll get to that as my third pick. I'm going to look at Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. He agreed with Belichick. It's tough when to pick and choose which players you're going to rest, so he gave some indication that his guys are going to play for a little bit, maybe even more up against the Raiders. The Raiders, man, I can't believe I'm saying it. They are due to lose. They've won the last 2 weeks. And even when they won, they really lost because it hurt their draft pick. They went from the 1st or 2nd pick to now the 8th pick of the draft. So I love the Chargers. They got a competent head football coach in Jim Harbaugh, and the Raiders are absolutely incompetent, but it would actually help them to lose this week. So give me the Chargers laying 4 points. So I have the Bengals laying 2.5, the Chargers laying 4. Jody has the Packers laying 10 and the Commanders laying 6. And we do the final game. Jody Mack, take it away.
Yes, I disagree with you on a couple here. Number one, I think the Raiders are going to win. I think they save Antonio Pierce's job. You got him going out the door. I got him coming back for another year in Vegas.
My producer, Stu, is very upset with you right now because Stu's Raiders.
He wants to run Antonio out?
Yeah, he called this a few weeks ago. He said they're going to win some games they're not supposed to win, and they're going to screw up the draft pick, and they're not going to get Shador Sanders or Cam Ward. So it's a mess with the Raiders.
I blame their general manager more than I blame their coach. All right, the game we disagree on is the Lions and the Vikings. The Lions have been the best team in the NFC all year, plain and simple. And in their house, in their building, they've been outstanding. I give Sam Darnold a lot of credit, and I think some people, not all, some people have underrated the Vikings. Maybe I need to join that crew here because I'm going to take the Lions. I'm not picking the Lions to blow them out and beat them by 2 touchdowns. If it's only 3 points, I got it at 2.5. But if you're getting 3.5, starts to get a little dicey. It doesn't matter. Lions are going to win by a touchdown. Give me Detroit, and the road to the Super Bowl runs through Motown.
So a wise man by the name of Jody Mack told me, sometimes in order to win money in gambling, you got to be uncomfortable. And that's why I'm picking the Vikings. Because I looked at this game, I go, the Lions, this is their year. They're really going to blow the 1 seed. And I just look at the difference. The Vikings defense, I love what Flores has been doing with that defense. And the Lions are the walking wounded on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to take the Vikings. Like Jody said, I'm picking against them in this one. So I'm going to take the Vikings getting the 3 points. So the picks this week, I have the Vikings +3, the Chargers laying 4, the Bengals laying 2.5. Jody goes with the Packers laying 10, the Commanders laying 6, and the Lions laying 3 points. Jody?
If I'm going to be uncomfortable, I'll take the Raiders on the money line. Yeah. Stu, you and me, baby. Raider power, Raider Nation.
You know what? Stu should place a large wager on the Raiders this week. If he wins, then he could afford a Notre Dame Fighting Irish college football playoff semifinal ticket. I think you just helped him out there, Jody.
And Notre Dame's playing Penn State.
Yeah.
That stew against homeboy Hickey.
Yeah,
that's not good. There could be trouble in your studio, Zach Gelb. You might be picking up bodies all over the place.
Some could say I'm just stirring the pot between the two of them all week. I am lining them up. I'm doing Oklahoma drills all throughout the week leading up to this one. Jody, appreciate it as always. Thanks for doing it.
My pleasure, Gelby. Anytime.
There you go. The great Jody Mack. Once again, he has the Pack laying 10, the Commanders laying 6, the Lions laying 3. I take the Bengals laying 2.5, the Vikings +3, and the Chargers laying 4. Ryan Hickey is now my homeboy, I guess. Also, Rich Ackerman is my homeboy. Let me talk. I should make a shirt. Rich Ackerman is my homeboy, and wear it on one summer Thursday or something, because I wouldn't be working a Friday in the summer.
Crickets.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's get to my homeboy, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman, with the latest update.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
You're talking about that Sunday night clash for the top seed in the NFC. Good news for the Vikings. Aaron Jones off the injury report and will play for Minnesota in Detroit. The Jets coaching search continues. They conducted an interview for the second straight day, this time with former Titans head man Mike Vrabel. And it appears Tua Tagovailoa will sit the Dolphins finale against the Jets because of a hip injury. Tyler Huntley is expected to start. The Bills have signed Mike White to a one-year deal through next year. And with Josh Allen not expected to play much on Sunday, he could see some action. The Cavaliers got off to the NBA's best start, winning their first 15 games, but have been overshadowed by the Thunder despite winning 8 in a row. That's because Oklahoma City won its 13th straight last night and will host the Knicks, who bring a 9-game winning streak to OKC. It's also a matchup of the league's best defense against New York's offense, which is currently second best in the NBA. The Cavaliers are 4.5 up in the East on the Celtics and go for their 9th straight win and 30th of the season in Dallas, while the defending champs, coming off win number 25, are in Houston tonight. Top 25 action, 9th-ranked Marquette will host Creighton. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, like us on Facebook. Our handle is INF Sportsnet. That's INF Sportsnet for our Facebook page. This is the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, it's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day. It's brought to you by the fine folks at O'Reilly Auto Parts. KJ in Atlanta says, Zach, who do you think the 14 teams will be in the NFL playoffs this year? You can submit a question by tweeting at INSSportsCenter at Zach Gelb using the hashtag AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Most of these spots are already clinched. So we know that the Chiefs are the one. We know the Bills are the two in just the AFC. The Ravens, the Texans, the Steelers, and the Chargers are all in. We'll see what the exact seeding is. The Texans are locked in to the fourth spot anyway. Or they're going to be, they're locked into the fourth spot anyway because they're 9-7. The Ravens are 11-5, and the Steelers are 10-6. I do think the Ravens will win the division. So, okay, seeding's still on the line then with the Steelers and the Chargers. I guess, honestly, you'd rather be the 5. Because if I'm the Steelers, I would rather play the Texans than having to go and fall down to 6 and then play the Ravens again. That's just me. But I'll see how the Steelers approach that. If, in fact, you do see the Ravens win the 4:30 game before that, and then they're playing the night game on Saturday. So the final spot, Chiefs are resting everybody. Could Carson Wentz have a moment? I've seen crazier things before, so it's not inconceivable. But I just don't feel like the Dolphins or Bengals belong. Now, can the Broncos mess it up? Absolutely. Do I expect them to mess it up? Nope. But it feels like the Broncos just deserve to go. Dolphins been too inconsistent, and it doesn't even look like Tua's going to play. It looks like it's going to be Snoop Huntley once again. And then for the Bengals, I would love to see the Bengals get in. Do they deserve to get in? No. That offense, Joe Burrow deserves to get in. Jamar Chase deserves to get in. Trey Hendrickson deserves to get in. But pretty much everybody else on the team, outside of T. Higgins, don't deserve to go. So I think the Broncos are going to get that final spot. So that will leave you with the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, the Texans, the Steelers, the Chargers, and the Broncos being your 7 AFC playoff teams. Now, in the NFC, Eagles are locked into the 2. Either the Lions or the Vikings are going to be the 1. The Rams are your 3. You have the 4th spot up for grabs, or the 4th division winner up for grabs between Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Vikings, Lions, right, both in, depending on the seeding now. Commanders in, Packers in. So you have just one thing up for grabs. No wild card spots up for grabs. It's just who's going to win that division. And is it going to be Tampa Bay or is it going to be Atlanta? Yeah, I think Tampa Bay is going to win the division. And look at the breakdown of the NFC to the AFC. I don't know if you feel this way, Stu. Regardless of the order, your 7 playoff teams this year in the NFC in all likelihood are going to be the Lions, the Eagles, the Rams, the Bucks, the Vikings, the Commanders, and the Packers. In the NFC, or the AFC, it's the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens, the Texans, the Steelers, the Chargers, and in all likelihood, the Broncos. I think the NFC is better from top to bottom this year than the AFC. You think that as well?
I do. There's more teams at the bottom that you can talk me into going on a run. Like, you could talk me into the Packers going on a run or the Commanders making some noise, or the Vikings. AFC, I really think it's those top 3 teams.
I would say the difference, though, is the AFC you have in terms of your premier teams, right? The Chiefs, the Bills, and then obviously the Ravens. You have premier quarterback play. You have elite quarterback play, established quarterback play. I know Allen and Lamar haven't done it yet in the postseason, but you have 3 of the 4 best quarterbacks in the league. And quite frankly, the 4 best quarterbacks in the league are all in the AFC. But in terms of teams that are going to make the playoffs, you have the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens. Those are 3 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. In the NFC, Goff's having a great season, but there will be but can Goff win the Super Bowl? Jalen Hurts, banged up. He's got to a Super Bowl before. Can he get back there? Stafford, does he have another run left in him? He's established. He's won a Super Bowl, but can he win another? Baker Mayfield, once again, I love watching Baker. He's a gamer. Yeah, but are the Bucs a Super Bowl contender? Sam Darnold, having a great season. Some people, though, will say if they don't win this weekend, they're not going to a Super Bowl. Jaden Daniels, phenomenal rookie season. Yeah, but will you be able to go take the Commanders to a Super Bowl? I don't think so this year. Jordan Love was good last year. Hasn't popped off as we thought he was going to be this year. And there's a question on you could elevate. Like, there's still, the teams are better in the NFC. But how we usually break it down in terms of just what's simplistic in the national radio landscape is who's your quarterback and who's your coach, right? And you look at the AFC, the duos are Andy Reid, Mahomes, McDermott, and Allen, even though McDermott has some questions, obviously, in the postseason, has done a really good job with that Bills franchise. And you got Harbaugh, and you got Lamar Jackson. In the duos in the NFC, we all love Dan Campbell, and Jared Goff's a good quarterback. Nick Sirianni, fun personality, he's won a lot of games, also gets questioned a lot. Jalen Hurts, your quarterback. McVay and Stafford, that's a phenomenal duo. Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield. O'Connell and Darnold. O'Connell's a stud. You got Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels. You got Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love. Like, there's a lot more good in the NFC, but are any of those duos elite duos? I think the quarterback play in your top 3 teams in the AFC is better looked at and viewed nationally than the quarterback play in the NFC. So we did go into the season saying, who's going to step up at the quarterback position in the NFC? But it's been more than just the quarterbacks in the NFC. Those teams from 1 through 7, if it goes the way we think it's going to go, in the AFC compared to the NFC, the teams 1 through 7 are better. But there's always going to be that but because of who the quarterbacks are in the AFC compared to who the quarterbacks are in the NFC. All righty, that will conclude another week of the Zach Gelb Show. It was a funky week because we were here Monday, not here Tuesday, Wednesday, here Thursday, and obviously here today on Friday. I'll be on WFAN in New York City tomorrow for a quick show from 9 to 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can listen on the always free Odyssey app. And then we do got Sunday morning football coming your way on Sunday right here on many of these same stations on the Infinity Sports Network. We do college football for the first hour, and then the second hour is all things NFL, gearing you up for another weekend of football in the National Football League for what will be our 18th installment of Sunday morning football for this year since we have reached week 18. Big thanks to Jody Mack for stopping by. Big thanks to Samter. Big thanks to Stu, and also, I guess, Hickey for filling in as well. That meeting go well, Stu? Everything okay with that meeting as we get set for the Rich Eisen show?
Everything's great. We're ready to go for Monday.
Perfect. So ready to go for Monday. Make sure you listen to Rich Eisen on Monday from noon to 3, and you get us right from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you listen to us and there's an affiliate change and you get in on Monday, you're like, where the heck is Zach? Just reach out to me at Zach Gelb, ZACHGLB, Twitter, Instagram. I'll make sure you find a way to listen to the show, whether it's on YouTube, SiriusXM, or even on the always free Odyssey app. So we will be here on Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you then. Talk about all things in the world of football. Have a great weekend, everybody. We out. Bye-bye.